きてり込む手がふらる閉じに身はやらせんで手めききの酒この尻時もこれて漏れちての魂で明日の君きなけのくしゃそわの襟だけ進め嘘ましめりもそれなり守りたい世界いやこうてて吠えてゆけ金がされも言わずつか燃える心は地もしょな近いコントロールすげて回るような
The fight was over and Cien Vegeta lay on the ground defeated while he slowly crawled towards his ship to leave Earth. But while he was doing this, Krillin approached him with Yajirobe's sword and put it to Vegeta's neck ready to kill him. "Don't do it, Krillin!" Goku shouted from the ground. He had so many wounds and was out of energy that he couldn't even stand up. "What do you say, Goku? It would be best to finish him off now that we have the opportunity," Krillin replied without stopping looking at Vegeta. "Please, I want to fight him again and defeat him myself. I know it sounds selfish of me, but please, Krillin," the Cien asked. "Damn. It's okay, Goku," said Krillin, reluctantly accepting while removing Yajirobe's sword from Vegeta's neck, who took the opportunity to leave the planet. Yajirobe gave Goku and the other surviving warriors seed pods so they could move and save someone who was on the verge of death. 6 days later. Somewhere in the universe. "Please wake up." "Yeah, Lady Miu," said a guy named Whis. I'm awake," the woman replied. "I'm sorry, but I won't let you sleep any longer. If you keep sleeping, you'll force me to sing you my wake-up call in my angelic voice." "Nuu, anything but that," Miu replied as she stood up and gave a long yawn, then went to take a shower while Whis prepared something for her to eat. "So Frieza destroyed planet Vegeta as I ordered him to?" asked the white-haired girl before starting to devour the dishes that had been prepared for her. "That's right, but what I don't understand is why she asked me to wake her up right now," was told her, not very convinced. "I had a premonition," she cried, quite excited. "Ho ho ho, a premonition? Come Tisk, don't even remind me," Miu snorted while shaking her head. "I doubt something like this will happen. The surviving Ciens are in different places and have low fighting power." "Oh. What is this? What's wrong, Whis?" asked the goddess of destruction curiously. "There is a Cien who until a few days ago was training with the North Kaio," answered the angel with the North Kaio. "How suspicious," said Miu with a hand on her chin. "Whis, do you think so?" he asked as an image of the Cien training in some mountains came out of his staff. "Who is he?" he asked as he watched the Cien train. "Whis, the Cien who trained with the North Kaio. His name is Son Goku." "Miu, I got it. I dreamed I was fighting a powerful archrival." "Eto. What was he like?" Super. That's it. I dreamed I was fighting a Super Cien god just like him," she shouted while pointing at the image of the Cien that Whis' staff was showing. "Super Cien god? And that it resembles his power seems unlikely to me," the angel replied as he began to look at his staff. "Miu, it may be an exaggeration but someone will appear to confront me," she said with a slight smile and emotion. "Whis is located on planet 4032 to 877, or also known as planet Earth," he said as he stopped looking at his staff which stopped shining. Planet Earth? Is that the planet where those disrespectful dinosaurs were?" Miu asked curiously. "Whis, don't tell me you're thinking of going to visit the Cien." "Miu, how long would it take us to get there?" she asked as she stood up. "About 23 minutes, Whis replied. "Miu, just as long as an anime lasts." It's very far away, she said while lowering her head and then raising it, but I have no choice. We'll go whiz. Whiz, as you say, Mrs. Miu, the angel answered her, and then they both left the castle, where they then headed towards planet Earth. Planet Earth. Goku was training alone on Mount Boz, a few miles from his home, until he was interrupted. Goku? Can you hear me, Goku? Kaya-sama. Is that you? Asked the Saiyan as he stopped training. Goku, a terrible threat is approaching Earth, said the North Kaio with quite a bit of concern in his tone. Goku, a threat? What do you mean? Kaya-sama, the goddess of destruction Miu is heading towards Earth. If you meet her, do not do anything that might upset her, or it will be the end of the Earth. Goddess of destruction? So she must be strong, right? Asked the Saiyan animatedly. She's so powerful that even the Supreme Kaishin would pee his pants. Don't get close to her, shouted Kaya-sama. Perfect. Although I don't know that Supreme Kaishin, he sounds like someone important, so I'm dying to meet Miu. Goku exclaimed with enormous excitement. Don't be an idiot, Goku, shouted Kaya-sama. Hey, your son Goku, right? The named man was surprised and looked around until a huge light appeared a few meters away from him, and from there a strange man came out, and behind him a woman appeared. That's right, it's me, Goku replied, getting serious. Great. Etu, do you know? Said Miu with a hand on her chin, trying to remember the name. Super Saiyan God, was whispered to the goddess of destruction. Miu, yes, son Goku, do you know the Super Saiyan God? She asked with great expectation. Super Saiyan God? Is there a god? Well, I don't know him, Goku replied after thinking about it for a bit. Ho, I told you, Mrs. Miu, was said while laughing. Oh, what a shame. I think I did wrong to get excited thinking about fighting someone strong, said the goddess, quite disappointed. Lady Miu, I've heard that you are quite strong. Would you mind having a friendly meeting? Please, said Goku, bowing. In all my years of existence I have never heard of anything like that. There is confidence in your heart. It's okay, I will fight you, son Goku. Miu replied with a slight smile as she lowered her power to a minimum. Great. Thanks, Ms. Miu, he said, celebrating, then getting into battle stance. Shall we begin? Asked the goddess. Hey. Goku shouted as he launched himself at Miu, who simply stepped aside, causing the Saiyan to continue on his way so he could punch him in the back of the head. Kaaiuukiin. Goku shouted and instinctively ducked, and from the ground he launched a kick at the goddess, which she rejected with her right leg, and then took the Saiyan's ankle and threw him towards a nearby forest. You're being too soft on him, that's rare of you, said Whis as he watched the fight. Despite being weak, he has good movements, and it seems that he loves fighting, like I once was, so I won't hurt him, he replied with a smile before flying off in search of the Saiyan. Goku was recovering. AI sent me so far, and she's not even using all her power. It's incredible, he said as he stood up and looked up to see Miu approaching at high speed. Kaioken X3. He shouted before launching himself to attack the goddess of destruction, trying to land a punch in the face which was stopped by his hand, and a kick which was also stopped. And now, Miu asked him, smiling a little arrogantly. And now this. Kaioken X4, he shouted and gave Miu a huge headbutt on the forehead, who smiled again. We're going to get along very well, he said before headbutting Goku in the forehead, and both began to increase the strength of their heads while smiling. Kaioken X5. He shouted before bending down and grabbing Miu and then falling with great power towards the ground and hitting her head on the ground while creating a huge crater. I think I've reached my limit, he said, very agitated while he returned to the base state, and his body was very swollen. Little by little he fell but managed to stay kneeling. Miu emerged from the rubble and walked towards Goku, who clearly couldn't continue, but still tried to stand up. Son Goku, you have reached your limit, please do not push yourself or you could die. Let's continue another time, said the goddess of destruction as she ran her hands over the Saiyan's cheeks. Miu's look was one of concern. She was aware that the Saiyan was trying to keep up with her, and that's why she let him touch her, since if she wanted she could have ended the fight with that blow to the never. Lady Miu. I can still see continue. He shouted while taking the goddess's hands, and with great difficulty he managed to stand up, head down, unable to see Miyu's face. "No, you can't. I'm sorry Son Goku, but I'll have to finish the match for your own good," he said as he released the Saiyan's grip on his hands and then raised his hand and hit him. But suddenly Goku disappeared from her sight and appeared behind her, surprising even Whis. "We're not done yet, Mrs. Miyu," he said seriously as a golden aura began to surround him and increased exponentially. Goku shouted as his hair stood on end in a golden color and his eyes changed to green. "What just happened?" asked Miyu, surprised by the increase in power but more than anything by the transformation that Goku had just suffered. "Ho ho ho, how interesting, Mr. Goku has transformed into a Super Saiyan," he said smiling. "Super Saiyan? This power. It feels incredible, I've never felt anything like this," he said in amazement. "So you were right, you could continue. To be honest, I'm excited to fight you with this new look," Miyu said smiling. "Goku, me too, Mrs. Miyu. Call me Miyu, understood Goku?" he said smiling as he got into a fighting stance. "All right. Let's continue, Miyu," Goku shouted, launching himself to attack the goddess, who did the same, and they clashed fists to then continuously hit each other. "It seems that Mrs. Miyu is having fun. If I remember correctly, she never had fun," said Whis while smiling at the fight between the two. A powerful punch from both of them to their cheeks sent them flying away, but they managed to recover quickly. "That's all you got, Goku," Miyu shouted smiling while rubbing her cheek. "I'll show you all my power, Miyu," Goku shouted as the golden aura reappeared and he prepared his technique. Me. "Come on Goku, don't hold back," he shouted, encouraging the Saiyan. Me. "Remember, I am a goddess. Use all your power." Goku shouted, launching a huge and powerful technique which Miyu stopped with both hands. "This is my Maith. Goku, you are definitely someone exceptional," Miyu whispered with a proud smile as she continued to stop the technique. Out of nowhere came Goku from the Kamehameha, surprising the goddess of destruction. "I've got you," Goku shouted, grabbing her by the cheeks and head-butting her on the forehead, making the whole forest rumble. Miyu smiled at the blonde's action. It was certainly something she would never expect, that he would use the technique as a distraction and then come out to hit her. He was certainly very skilled in battle, so she did the same as the Saiyan. She took him by the cheeks and then kissed him. Goku didn't know how to react. He didn't even know what was happening. Something like that had never happened to him. He felt Miyu hugging him by the neck. Little by little he began to let himself go, starting to reciprocate the kiss and take the goddess by the waist. Meanwhile, Whis was looking at the situation with a surprised face. No doubt what was happening was almost unbelievable. If someone told him that the goddess of destruction Miyu was kissing a Saiyan she had just met and fought, no one would believe it. Goku and Miyu were separating due to lack of air. When they looked into each other's eyes, they both felt their cheeks burn from what had happened. The Saiyan didn't know why he was feeling strange, while Miyu knew a little since Whis informed her about the so-called feelings, since he had to teach her too much since he was practically a father to her, having been given to her since she was a child by her parents who had to fulfill their duty. Cough cough, "It seems the fight ended well," said Whis, drawing both of their attention. "Atu. Yes. He said Miyu, blushing and embarrassed. Goku, while laughing sadly, lost his Super Saiyan transformation and fell to the ground due to the enormous energy expenditure he had made. "Goku, Miyu shouted and quickly helped him stand up. Then she looked at her master. "Was please heal him." The angel nodded and healed him, surprising the Saiyan as he felt like new. "Thank you very much, Mr. Whis." "Thank the Saiyan, then I guess we should go home, Mrs. Miyu," Whis said, looking at the goddess of destruction, who sighed and nodded reluctantly. "Goku, this will sound a little silly, but thank you for spending this hour with me. I have learned a lot and things happened to me that I still don't understand," said Miyu, approaching the Saiyan. "I thank you too. The truth is I never thought I would fight against a goddess, and what's more, I also acquired a new power," he said with a smile. "Thank you very much," Miyu told her before hugging the Saiyan, who didn't expect the white-haired girl to do that, although she felt, or rather wanted to hug her too, and she did so for a few minutes. "So, will I see you again?" asked Goku, lowering his head to see the goddess since he was taller than Miyu. "Of course, we have a fight pending. Besides," she was saying while raising her gaze and then giving the Saiyan a short kiss, "I think I like you. although I don't know what these feelings are that I discovered with you," Miyu said while she slowly moved away from Goku with her hands on her chest. "Goku, I think I know what you mean, I feel the same way, and knowing that now you're leaving and I don't know when I'll see you again is causing me enormous frustration, Miyu." "Oh Goku," Miyu whispered while biting her lower lip, in a week I'll come back and look for you," she said while she stood behind was to leave. The Sien smiled. "I look forward to your return, Miyu," was the last thing he could say to her as she left. "Miyu," Goku whispered as he looked up at the sky. From space Miyu looked towards the earth and whispered Goku. 3 days had passed and on the planet of the goddess of destruction, Miyu was lying in the shade under some trees while was played a kind of chess with the oracle fish. "Goku," she whispered with a small smile and a hand on her chest before falling asleep after thinking so much about the Sien on Earth. To be exact, in Kamisama's palace, Krillin, Goku, Bulma, Yajirobe, Mr. Popo, and Karen were gathered, as they were discussing what they would do with those who died in the battle against the Siens. Those Siens said that Piccolo was a Namekian. "Maybe if we go to Piccolo's planet there might be Dragon Balls there too, don't you think?" said Krillin quite seriously. "A Namekian?" Goku shouted, surprised. "Guys, Krillin has given an excellent idea, but the most important thing is missing. How are we going to get there if we don't have transportation and we don't even know where that planet is?" said Bulma after thinking about that possibility. "Don't worry, you can use the Kami-sama ship," said Mr. Popo, gaining everyone's attention. "It's hidden in the ice continent. I'll guide you." He spoke again. So they went in search of Kami-sama's ship and they would have everything ready to leave since the ship had the coordinates of the planet Namek. "Now we can go," said Bulma, leaving the ship. It had already gotten dark, only Goku and Mr. Popo were in Kami-sama's palace. "Perfect, Bulma. You should go as soon as possible," said Goku as he stopped exercising a little. The blue-haired girl raised an eyebrow as she approached Goku. "What do you mean, you should go as soon as possible? Aren't you coming?" he said half scoldingly. What happens is that I have to see someone in a few days, but don't worry, I'll go." The Sien answered the latter with a thumbs up. "Okay," he said while sighing. "I better go home to rest." "Goku, will you take me?" "Eat something while you're at it," he said to his best friend. "Eat something? Well, what are we waiting for?" Bulma shouted the excited Sien while he carried the brief and flew away at great speed. "Goodbye, Mr. Popo," he shouted as a farewell. The next day at dusk, Goku, Krillin and Bulma met at Kami-sama's palace since the ship was there. "Seriously, you're not going, Goku?" Krillin asked his best friend. "I'm sorry, Krillin, I have to meet someone in a few days, but as soon as I have time I'll go," Goku replied with his typical smile, reassuring his friend. "I hope you keep your word, Goku. So it will be Bulma and me?" asked Krillin, looking at the blue-eyed girl who was adjusting her astronaut suit as she was quite careful. "That's right, Krillin, hurry up and put on your suit. And let's go as soon as possible," she answered, a little annoyed since the zipper didn't fit her in the bust area and it was making her angry. "Yes, you're right. I'll put it on now," Krillin replied before looking at Goku. "We'll wait for you there," he said before going to change. "Goku, count on it, Krillin." A few minutes later the two were ready to leave. Bulma cleared up some doubts she had with Mr. Popo about the planet they would go to, and when she finished doing so, Krillin and Bulma said goodbye to both of them and then boarded the ship. "I'll call you on the communicator I gave you as soon as we arrive. Remember that my father will build a spaceship for you to travel in," Bulma shouted before she closed the door of the ship and they left for Namek. "Well, I guess I have to wait. In the meantime I'll train a little," said Goku, turning around to leave. "Wait, Mr. Goku," Mr. Popo called. "Why don't you come into the time room?" he asked the Sien. "Alright, I had forgotten that room was there. But will I be able to resist this time?" He said while laughing embarrassedly. "Of course he will. A few days ago I felt his ki increase incredibly. Please follow me," said Mr. Popo as he turned around to guide the Sien towards the time room. Upon reaching the door, Goku asked him, "Should I go in or do you have to prepare it?" No, I prepared it before you arrived with Krillin and Bulma, so please come in right away," Mr. Popo kindly asked. "Thank you very much, Mr. Popo. I owe you one." Goku happily replied and entered. Luckily for the Sien, thanks to the hard training he had on Kaio's planet, he could now train in the time room. The next day he came out with his clothes in tatters, but his power had increased considerably. Power level before entering Goku base, 15,000 Goku Super Saiyan, 750,000. Current power level base Goku, 31,000 Super Saiyan Goku, 1,550,000. I see you've done it, Mr. Popo said, appearing with clean clothes for the Saiyan to change into. That's right. It was incredible. I feel like my power has increased considerably. By the way, Mr. Popo, he said while receiving the clean clothes. Don't you have anything to eat? I'm starving. Go change while I serve you something to eat, Mr. Popo answered kindly as he guided the Saiyan to a room to change and then went to the dining room where there was a huge feast. Elsewhere. Lady Miu, the days I had told Mr. Goku have passed, said Whis as he approached where the goddess of destruction was resting. Thanks for letting me know, Whis, he said as he slowly woke up. You know, these days I've been thinking about it deeply and I realized something, Miu said as she stood up. It's true, I've never seen you try so hard for something. And what did you realize, Mrs. Miu? Whis asked. I want to be with Goku. I know it sounds illogical, I mean, I was only with him for a while, but I don't know how to express myself, cursed Miu, hitting the ground with her foot and grabbing her head with her hands. No need to say more, I understand what you're trying to tell me, but, are you sure you're going to continue with this? What will you do if the other gods of destruction find out? What will you do if Zeno-sama doesn't allow you to have a relationship with a mortal? Said was trying to find out how convinced Miu was. If the other gods try anything against my Goku, I will erase them from existence, and if Zeno-sama forbids me, she said while looking down for a few seconds and giving a long sigh before looking at Whis again, then I will leave my position as goddess of destruction, she said with enormous determination. Whis, seeing a huge glow in Miu's eyes, a glow that had disappeared when Miu's mother left, and now it was back, that made him smile. Very well, Mrs. Miu, then go take a bath and then we will go to the land, the angel told her. Yes sir, he shouted with a huge smile before running away. Ho, sometimes she behaves like a child, Whis whispered with a slight smile as he saw Miu smile. Seeing her in that state made him feel happy and that he was doing his job well, as a teacher, assistant and tutor. Back on Earth, Goku had just eaten a large part of the feast. I'm so full, he said while lying down and rubbing his stomach. It never ceases to amaze me how much food he eats, Mr. Popo commented after seeing how little food was left. Suddenly a white light appeared in front of both of them and from it came an anxious Miu who threw herself to hug the Saiyan. Goku, you! She shouted with excitement before throwing herself at him and giving him several kisses all over the Saiyan's face. Miu! You're back, he shouted while hugging her. Whis, ho, let me take a little souvenir, he said while taking out a camera and taking a picture of Goku and Miu hugging each other as if they hadn't seen each other for centuries. Excuse me for interrupting, but who are you? Asked Mr. Popo while gathering the dirty dishes. Let me introduce you, said Goku as he stood up next to Miu, who instinctively took the Saiyan's hand. Mr. Popo, he is Whis and she is Miu, he said, pointing with his eyes at those named. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Popo-san, Whis greeted kindly. I am the goddess of destruction, Miu, and future, Etu. Goku's partner, she said playing with her fingers and a blush on her cheeks. My future partner? What would that be? Asked Goku since he didn't understand. Don't you know what a couple is? It's when two people like each other, start dating, and over time form a family, Miu said the last thing, covering her face with her hands to hide her blush. And to think you didn't know about these things either, ho, was whispered while laughing. I understand now. So by forming a family you mean we'll have children? Asked Goku, slowly understanding. Miu nodded shyly without taking her hands off her face, although it seemed like smoke was coming out of her ears. And how will we have children? Goku asked now, raising an eyebrow. Miu took a long breath to calm herself as she slowly removed her hands from her face and with enormous shyness answered, I don't know exactly, but from what I've been told, you'll have to put in. Ahem, I think this is not the time or place to talk about these things. Don't you think, Mrs. Miu? Said was interrupting the goddess of destruction. Mr. Popo, excuse my intrusion, But Mr. Goku is a bit stupid and doesn't know many things, since he has been dedicated to combat since he was little and has never been taught about other things, he said calmly, since he understood that the goddess of destruction was a goddess like Kami-sama, without knowing the enormous difference that there was between the two. Hey, snorted Goku. Hee. Miyu laughed and then hugged Goku. Then I'll teach you everything I know, she said happily. Really? Thank you very much. This way I'll learn things that may turn out to be important, Goku replied with a huge smile and then gave a short kiss to Miyu, who was surprised and blinked several times. I'm sorry, did I do something I shouldn't have? Asked Goku, seeing Miyu's reaction. The goddess formed a smile while shaking her head. No, not only was I surprised that you took the initiative, and it makes me very happy that you did, she replied before kissing him passionately. I'm glad you found someone to fall in love with, Mrs. Miyu. I wish this happiness you feel would last forever, thought the angel as he smiled at the sight of both of them. As they separated, Goku grabbed Miyu by the chin. Will you stay? He asked seriously. Of course. From today on I will live with you, she answered happily while placing her head on the Sin's chest. I'm glad to hear that, Goku told her as he put his arm around her back to bring her closer to him and then kissed her on the head. Mr. Popo, do you want to eat something? Well, since you mentioned it, I think I'm a little hungry. For my part I will accept your invitation, Whis replied. I'm hungry too. I rushed out to see Goku. I didn't eat anything, Miyu said as she stopped hugging him. You should have taken your time and eaten something. I'm not going anywhere, not for now, he said as he approached the table. Miyu, who was about to sit down, stopped dead in her tracks and turned to look at the Sien. How come not for now? Did something happen? He asked curiously. Well, the truth is yes, we had a confrontation against two Siens who came to destroy the earth. My friends tried to stop them until I arrived, but when I did several were dead. Luckily we managed to win, Goku narrated seriously. How terrible. Tell me who murdered your friends and I will find him and destroy him, said Miyu, getting angry. No, I want to defeat him with my own hands. Only one of them is left, his name is Vegeta, Goku told her and saw how she smiled slightly. Prince Vegeta? That uneducated scum? I'll teach him a lesson. Whis, I called to the angel. How delicious, Whis shouted as he tried a bite of roasted meat, ignoring Miyu, who, upon seeing the food that Mr. Popo was bringing and the good aroma it had, began to make her mouth water. Hey Whis, don't finish your food, Miyu shouted as she went to the table and started eating. How delicious. By the way, Mr. Popo, how long will it take to get to Namek? Goku asked him. Mr. Popo, I calculate that with that ship it will take at least a month. Why do you ask? A month? Well, at least I have a month to train, Goku said cheerfully. Goku, Miyu called before wiping her mouth. Why do you want to get stronger? She asked curiously while Whis looked sideways. I just want to be stronger and that's it. I like facing powerful people and now what motivates me the most is you, Miyu, he said animatedly. Me? Asked the goddess of destruction while raising an eyebrow. That's right. You are incredibly powerful. I'm sure you haven't used even 1% of your power against me, but one day I will make you use all your power. He said, transforming into a Super Saiyan with excitement. Miyu smiled at what Goku said and leaned on his shoulder. Do you think I didn't notice that your power has increased? I'm sure, Goku, that one day you'll be able to fight me as equals. Cough cough, Mr. Goku, if you agree, I could start training you, was said as he finished eating. Are you really telling me that, Mr. Whis? She said cheerfully. Of course, I don't see anything wrong with it. Besides, maybe training you will motivate Mrs. Miyu to return to training ho ho ho, he said while laughing with that classic smile. Ha! As if I would train again just because. My Goku would train with me, he was saying while his voice was decreasing. Excuse me? Can you speak louder? I can't hear you? Whis asked mischievously since he had heard her. I'll join you when Goku masters Divine Ki, she said while crossing her arms and looking away, hiding her blush. Divine Ki? What is that? Asked the Saiyan with great curiosity and excitement. Tell me one thing. Haven't you ever wondered why you can't feel Mrs. Miyu's ki? I asked the Saiyan seriously. Goku opened his eyes in surprise, and tried to feel Miyu's ki but he felt nothing. It's true. I can't feel his ki Whis, that's because Lady Miyu has mastered divine ki, which is very different from the ki you use. Mr. Whis, let's start training as soon as possible, he said, very excited and motivated. Whis, ho, we will start tomorrow, so please contain yourselves. 15 minutes later, which was how long it took them to finish eating and say goodbye to Mr. Popo, the three of them went to Boz Mountain where Goku lived. Do you live here? Miyu asked when she saw the Xian's humble house. Bulma gave me this house a few years ago for winning the martial arts tournament. She also gave me a credit card to buy food, Goku replied as he entered his house. What a good friend that Bulma must be to give her these things, don't you think? Mrs. Miyu was asked the goddess of destruction, who was clenching her fist. Why yes, what a good friend, she answered with a slight smile and a swollen vein on her forehead, which made the angel laugh. And then they entered the house. It seemed small from the outside, but inside it was quite good, since it had a dining room, kitchen, bathroom and 2 bedrooms. Are you really going to stay here, since there's only 1 room free? Asked Goku while he went to get some soft drinks. Only Mrs. Miyu, so don't worry about me, unless there is some delicious food you would like to treat me to, Ho-Ho, Whis replied. But Whis, exclaimed the goddess. Calm down, besides, this is what you meant, right? This will be the best for both of you, trust me, he whispered in Miyu's ear and then left. And Whis? Asked Goku when he saw that he was not there. He left, he'll only come for the training sessions, he said while receiving a soft drink. So it'll be just the 2 of us? Goku asked, scratching his head, not quite understanding why Whis had left. Why yes, from now on we will live together, he answered timidly after drinking his soda. And so began a new stage in the lives of both, in which they will learn a lot from each other. That same night, after eating several pizzas, they went to sleep together despite the shyness of both. They did it to get used to it and lose their shyness. Meanwhile, Whis had gone to the planet of the goddess Miyu to play and talk with the oracle fish like every night for several million years now. The next day, after a breakfast made by Miyu herself, who knew a little about cooking thanks to Whis and her sister Vados, who sometimes came to visit her, Whis appeared. It was already around 8 in the morning. Good morning, the angel greeted kindly after Goku opened the door for him. Good morning, Mr. Whis, Goku replied as he stepped aside and let the angel pass. And Mrs. Miyu? I asked, not seeing her in the dining room. She went to wash the dishes and told me that you were about to arrive, said Goku as he went to the kitchen. Miyu, Lord Whis has arrived, he said to the goddess of destruction. I know, honey, go start training. I'll go as soon as I'm done, Miyu replied with a smile. Okay, I'll be waiting for you, she replied before returning to the dining room where Whis was. Mr. Whis, Miyu just told me to start training. When I'm done she'll come, she said to the angel. I guess he'll come to see. Whis thought, well then let's go outside, the angel replied, and then the 2 of them went out. I'm already starting to get excited, said Goku as he began to stretch his muscles. Ho, I hope you keep that enthusiasm, Whis replied while laughing. So what do I do? He asked with curiosity and excitement. Whis, you will carry something heavy in your arms while you walk, the angel answered while he made his staff shine and a kind of black box appeared in front of the Xian. It seems like something simple, Goku whispered, but when he picked it up it became extremely heavy. I screamed, making a huge effort and barely lifting it to the height of my knees. Whis, perfect, now you have to walk, but don't be late because the ground behind you will disappear. Ho, what did he say? Goku exclaimed as he looked back and saw how the ground began to disappear. He shouted in fear and began to walk with enormous difficulty without looking back. Several minutes later Miyu came out to see how Goku was doing, but when she left she didn't see him anywhere, only Whis was there. And Goku? He asked as he approached the angel. Mrs. Miyu. Here it is, look, he answered while a kind of projector came out of the staff that showed the training that Goku was having. I always hated those things, they adjust to your strength capacity and you never realize when you get tired until they fall, said Miyu, not very happy to see Goku's training material again. Was ho ho ho, but you have to admit it's perfect training material, Tisk. I didn't say otherwise. By the way, how many meters have you been doing already? He asked curiously. Whis, it's already 127 meters. Honestly, it has exceeded my expectations. My Goku was impressive, she thought with a proud smile. By the way, Whis, in my confrontation with him you realized it, right? Said Miyu, now with a trembling seriousness. That's right. Although it was only for a second, and that led him to surpass his limits and become a Super Saiyan, was answered analytically. Miyu, do you think it was pure coincidence? Whis, time will tell. That state is almost impossible to reach among the gods, and he is only immortal dash. But something I have learned throughout my life is that coincidences do not exist. He thought this last while looking sideways at the goddess of destruction. I think, no. I trust that at some point he will master it too, said Miyu with a smile. He trusts Mrs. Miyu a lot. Did something happen after I left? Was asked, raising an eyebrow. That's right, I tried a delicacy called pizza. The goddess replied while drooling a little, remembering the taste of the food. How unfair, Mrs. Miyu. I already want to try the delicacy called pizza, was exclaimed. It seems I've reached my limit for today, said Miyu, seeing Goku quite agitated and the centimeters. The material was untied from the Saiyan's wrists and fell to the ground just like the Earthling. I can't feel my arms, hee, said Goku as he fell to the ground exhausted. Miyu and Whis immediately appeared in front of him. This is part of the warm-up, Mr. Goku. Now you must do one-handed push ups, was said animatedly. What's part of the warm-up? Goku exclaimed, standing up while his arms seemed to be hanging down. Before continuing, take a break, darling, to recover some strength, Miyu told her with a smile. Goku nodded and let himself fall on the ground. Whis simply cannot stop being amazed by the attitude of his disciple, who ran towards the house and then came out with a soft drink for the Saiyan. You'll adapt to training, Goku. The first few months are hellish, but then you don't feel it as much, Miyu told him as she handed the soda to the Saiyan. Thank you, Goku said to the goddess of destruction as he received the soda and then drank a little. I think that if this is the warm-up, the training must be very difficult, right? He asked animatedly before drinking the drink again. Puyu, if you can't even imagine it, Miyu said to the Saiyan with emotion, trying to encourage her partner more. Ho ho ho, sounds like she wants to join the training, Mrs. Miyu, was said mischievously, trying to get the goddess of destruction to return to training. I've already made it clear what I'm going to do, she said while putting her hands on her waist. Don't make me angry, remember that I'm a goddess. Calm down, Miyu, said Goku as he stood up again, and made the goddess of destruction calm down upon hearing his voice. Mr. Whis, let's continue please. I'll calm down because I don't want to, not because you told me to, Goku, she whispered while pouting and looking away. As you command, Mr. Goku, said the angel while making a kind of suit appear. Put this on and do 10,000 push ups. 10,000. Goku exclaimed in amazement before starting to put on the suit, which, like in the previous exercise, this suit was incredibly heavy, adjusting to the maximum that the Saiyan could resist. Minutes began to pass, and with them hours. Miyu, after an hour of watching her partner do push ups with one hand and head down, went to cook since lunchtime was approaching. 10,000. Goku shouted with great effort as he managed to perform the last push-up and then fell to the ground, creating a small crater which was repaired. Very well done, Mr. Goku. Now comes something that you will like. You will have to try to hit me, the angel said to the Saiyan. That will be easy, Goku exclaimed as he stood up. Ho ho ho, I wouldn't be so sure. By the way, It's not necessary for him to continue using the suit, was said, and then waited for Goku to take off the heavy suit. I feel so light. Goku shouted after taking off his suit and punched the air several times even though he was tired. You can start whenever you want, the angel told him as he made his staff disappear. Here I go, Goku exclaimed before launching himself to attack Whis, and for some reason he didn't feel the tiredness he felt while doing the exercises. The Saiyan performed all kinds of blows and combos but could not land any on the angel, so a few long minutes passed, in which Miu went outside while she was taking out the table so she could have lunch outside, and that was where she saw Goku fight against Whis. She could not help but stay like a fool in love when she saw her partner, as well as when she noticed the way he fought made her blood start to boil and want to fight. It was the second time this had happened to her, since the first time was when they fought. Tata-tata-ta, Goku shouted as he threw a series of punches to continue with an elbow and finish with a half kick, all of which was easily dodged by Whis, who moved away from him. You're too slow, the angel said to the Saiyan. What? He shouted, transforming into a Super Saiyan and suddenly appearing in front of Whis to punch him, which was stopped by a finger of the angel. Very well. Enough for today, said the angel while directing his gaze to Miu, who was with an admiring smile and a slight blush. Whoa, Mr. Whis, I didn't manage to hit him even once, said the Saiyan as he went towards Miu and saw that she was quite red. Are you feeling okay? He asked her as he put a hand on her forehead. Why yes, I am doing great, he replied before returning to the house to bring lunch. Whis, noticing that the chairs were missing, brought them in one go thanks to his staff and then sat down. I thought I would be exhausted, but I think I could continue fighting, says Goku while clenching his fist again and again, gaining Whis' attention. That's because your body is still warm. Once it cools down, open it, Whis told him before laughing. The Saiyan gulped when he heard the angel. Seconds later Miu came out with the lunch and then went to get the drink. I don't know how it turned out. I hope it's delicious, she said while serving the stew to Goku, then to Whis and finally to her. So yummy, Goku shouted after trying the first bite, making Miu smile at the compliment. It's really delicious, I could get married now, ho. Whis exclaimed before continuing to eat but glancing at the goddess of destruction, who had turned completely red. Getting married? What's that? Goku asked with some curiosity. Miu was about to answer, but luckily for her, Whis got there first. Let me explain it to you this way. You and Mrs. Miu could be said to be boyfriend and girlfriend, or a couple, but it is an informal relationship. When you get married it becomes formal and you become husband and wife, or called in another way, husband and wife. Was finished smiling and taking a good bite of stew. Ah, I understand, he said while directing his gaze to Miu, who was eating while steaming from her ears. So, at some point we will get married to formalize our relationship, right? He asked while smiling at her. Upon hearing the Saiyan, Miu's eyes lit up and she shouted with enormous happiness, yes. At the end of lunch, Goku fell to the ground because his body had finished cooling and he couldn't move. At that moment, Miu had gone to wash the dishes and was laughing at the Saiyan, but then he helped him recover, at least so that he could sit down. Rest for the rest of the day. Remember that tomorrow morning you have to train and I don't want any excuses, was told the Saiyan, who nodded that it was the only thing he could do. After that the angel went to say goodbye to Miu, told her about how the Saiyan had been left, and then went to say goodbye to Goku and then left. A few minutes later the goddess of destruction came out to keep the Saiyan company, and they were outside until around 5 o'clock. Since then Miu accompanied Goku to the bathroom to shower. Luckily for her, the Saiyan could already move a little, so he was able to undress alone and shower with hot water. After a while she also took a shower and dressed in the clothes that Whis had brought her, which were the same goddess of destruction dresses that she wore but in different colors. At night, Goku barely went to bed when he fell asleep. Miu stayed for a few moments looking at the Saiyan while caressing his hair until several minutes later, sleep began to win her over. "Good night, darling," she whispered with a slight smile as she looked lovingly at the Sien, then gave him a short kiss on the lips and settled on his chest, causing the Sien to unconsciously hug her with his left arm, making their bodies stick together, and then Miu fell asleep with a slight blush as she felt her skin against the Sien's. 10 days later, Goku was meditating under a tree. They had already had lunch and had left. The curious thing is that the Sien was not exhausted or anything like that, as the training he had today was to improve his use of ki. "What are you thinking about?" Miu asked as she approached after having washed the dishes. Goku opened his eyes, stopping his meditation, and looked at his girlfriend. "I have improved and learned a lot these days. That's how I felt when I started training with Was when I was little," Miu replied as a smile began to form on her face. "Do you want a rematch?" she asked the Sien, who smiled. "You roared," she exclaimed as she stood up and transformed into a Super Sien. "There is a big difference since the last time," thought Miu as she leveled her power to that of Goku in order to enjoy the fight. "Ready?" asked the dark-haired one as he got into a fighting stance. "Miu, come here!" shouted Goku as he lunged at Miu and punched, creating a shockwave that made the birds in the area fly away. Miu smiled and grabbed the Saiyajin's fist while she was pulling him towards her to headbutt him. She screamed after the head collision. "How hard is your head?" she shouted while recovering and avoiding a punch from Goku that was aimed directly at her face, counterattacking with a kick to the ribs before appearing above the Saiyajin and striking him on the head with both hands, sending him crashing to the ground and creating a not-so-big crater. Little by little, he is increasing his power and he keeps up with me without even being able to feel my ki. "You are amazing, darling," Miu thought from the sky as she watched the dust being raised. Hey, Goku shouted, quickly launching a Kamehameha which Miu stopped with one hand. "I won't fall for something like this twice," said the goddess of destruction as she pulled her other free hand back to stop a blow from Goku. The Sien started to scream as a golden aura began to surround him and started to push Miu back. "What? Her power suddenly increased?" he whispered with an enormous surprise on his face. "Take this," Goku shouted, grabbing Miu's right wrist to pull her towards him, and with his other free hand, hit the face of the goddess of destruction with a ki ball, finishing with another quick Kamehameha, sending Miu crashing into a mountain that was about 200 meters away, which was destroyed by the impact of the technique. "Oh, I think I got too emotional," Goku whispered as he flew to see how Miu was doing. Upon arriving at the impact zone, he saw his partner without any injuries, but her clothes were somewhat torn. Miu disappeared from where she was and appeared in front of Goku to give him a short kiss, which turned into a long and loving one for both of them. "This time you have won," Miu told him after they kissed seriously. Goku said, surprised and somewhat happy, "Yes, look at yourself. Since our last meeting you have improved considerably. I even think you have mastered the Super Saiyan, right?" Master it? Hee, did you notice?" he said while scratching his head awkwardly as he returned to his base form. "So you thought I wouldn't notice? Ha. And tell me how you came up with that," I asked with some curiosity. "Well, was the one who noticed that I was using energy excessively, and that made it so I couldn't use my full potential," Goku explained in a descriptive way. I see. No wonder you spent a few days like a Super Saiyan telling me you wanted to be blonde for a few days," I said, making a pout. "I'm sorry. I wanted to surprise you, Miu, and be worthy of you," said the Saiyan while apologizing. Ha, you are a fool," she told him before hugging him and resting her forehead on the Saiyan's chest. "You don't have to become stronger to be worthy of me. I love you as you are. I don't care about the power you have. I will always love you. But what I do want is to be truly worthy of you. I feel like I don't deserve you," she said while lowering her head. Goku took her by the chin so she could see him. "You are a goddess, Miu, and I am an ordinary being. You don't understand," she shouted, pushing him a little as tears began to roll down Miyu's cheeks. "I am a goddess of destruction, Goku. My duty is to destroy planets to maintain balance in the universe," she yelled as she started to CRYD destroy planets. Goku exclaimed in surprise as he took a few steps back. "Yes, I'm a mess, I know. But it's my duty as a destructive goddess," she said, trying to stop crying even though her body trembled, feeling vulnerable, especially not knowing how Goku would react. "Don't say those things, Miyu. You're not a terrible person just because it's your duty to destroy. I'm sure if you don't do it, the universe would suffer consequences," Goku told her before wrapping her in a hug. Miyu was surprised by what the Saiyan said, and a small smile began to form on her face, but it didn't last long as she moved away from him a bit again. "That you must know it, Goku. This has been eating away at me inside for a few days, and I can't stand it anymore," Miyu said as her breathing started to quicken and her nerves heightened even more. "What's happening? What should I know?" asked Goku with a bit of worry. "The truth about planet Vegeta," shouted Miyu, and Goku opened his eyes in surprise. "The planet where you were born. It wasn't destroyed by a meteorite. It was destroyed by Frieza, whom I ordered to do it," he said the last part, closing his eyes in fear. "Tell me one thing. What was the reason for you to order the destruction of the planet where I should have grown up with my parents?" said the latter with a little anger. Miyu opened her eyes with total sadness, looked at the Saiyan, who was noticeable to be somewhat angry. The Saiyans were wiping out various races of the universe. They invaded planets and then sold them. They didn't care about ending the lives of old people, children. They did it anyway. Do you think I would allow something like that? Even that Frieza, you piece of scum, just like your father. I'm going to destroy it," Mia said as a huge anger began to come out of her. "So you have eliminated the planet Vegeta and wiped out the Saiyan race, although a few are still alive," Goku said seriously as he approached Miyu. "Who is that guy Frieza?" "A scum of the universe that I will eliminate as soon as I see him," Miyu replied before sighing and calming down. "I understand. Do you think we should skip the shower?" said Goku, who received a quick nod from Miyu, and both returned to the house. They both entered the bathroom together for the first time at Miyu's suggestion, each soaping the other up and then stepping into the shower. First was Goku, who leaned back, then Miyu entered, sitting in front of the Saiyan and leaning against his chest. "How did you become the goddess of destruction and also incredibly powerful?" Goku asked with his classic smile as he started to stroke her hair. "Are you sure you want to know?" "It's a long story," Miyu replied, smiling a little shyly. "We have all the time in the world. Besides, I have to know your story, don't you think?" he said while bringing his nose close to hers. Miyu smiled happily upon hearing the Saiyan and gave him a short kiss. "Okay, but then you'll tell me your story, right?" "Goku, take it for granted, darling, hee. Well, let me see where to start. Oh, I got it. Let's press our foreheads together, and I will guide you through my memories," Miyu said while sitting in front of the Saiyan. Goku blushed upon seeing the breasts of the goddess of destruction, who had noticed but knew that sooner or later they would have to see each other. Besides, she had already seen something that made her blush. "So we just touch foreheads and that's it?" the Saiyan asked, not very sure. "Yes, darling, it's a goddess technique," let Miyu puff her chest with pride. They both leaned their foreheads together and then it grew dark. Goku and Miyu appeared floating while millions of images surrounded them. "Ready?" Miyu asked her while extending her right hand. "Let's do it," he replied with determination, taking her hand. "We will start from the beginning. Questions at the end of the tour, please," she said while laughing, since she had taken that from a movie. Flashback millions of years ago. 16 people were gathered around a sort of huge bed where there were 2 newborn children. The first was a girl with white hair and fair skin. The second was a boy with the appearance of a purple cat. both were asleep, next to their mother who was with them. So they are the first children of the union of two destructive gods, said a figure of a man who had a wild appearance, his black hair reaching halfway down his back and possessing a monkey tail. "Ha, did they call us here just for this nonsense?" exclaimed an annoyed humanoid being with the figure of a goat. "Moro, you must show more respect towards the children of our friends," the previous man exclaimed. "Friends? Ha ha ha, Yamashi, you are mistaken if you think they are my friends or anything like that," replied the being named Moro, who was noticeably quite upset to be there. "You too," called another of the people who was there. It was a woman with white hair, red eyes, and had a kind of tail. "Don't make a fuss, Mirai-sama is coming, so behave." "Tisk, don't get involved, Nin, Moro and I have business to solve," Yamashi replied, looking at Moro angrily. "Shut up once and for all. If you wake up my children I will kill them all no matter what consequences Mirai-sama imposes on me," exclaimed the goddess who was in bed with the two babies. Puum, huge doors open revealing two figures, one era of the universe's god of destruction 6, Morik, and behind him speaks a woman, whom the gods of destruction barely saw. They knelt before her. "I like your attitude, Diana. I've always told you, if you think they should be eliminated, do it," said the woman with a tone of authority. "But Mirai-sama," exclaimed Yamashi. "Silence!" shouted the named Mirai, and several of the gods began to sweat. "I have gathered you here to make an announcement," she began saying, causing the gods to look at her with concern. Meanwhile, Mirak, the god of destruction from Universe 6, was heading towards his wife, Diana, the goddess of destruction from Universe 7, along with his children. "Dei Shinken, could you please do the honors?" said the goddess of all Mirai, and from the door appeared the high priest. Cough cough, the newborn children of the destroyer gods Diana and Mirak will be trained to become the next destroyer gods of Universes 6 and 7 when their parents order it. Their guiding angels and teachers will be from those universes. In other words, Whis and Vados. "What?" several gods exclaimed. "Thank you, Dei Shinken, you may go notify your children," Mirai told him. "As you command, Mirai-sama," replied the father of the angels before departing. "My destructive gods, I hope you continue to do the great work you have been doing. Moro, Uma, Nin, Horus, Yagian, Mirak, Diana, Zoek, Yamashi, Kani, Camus, Arban, Ceres, Neo, Deus, Minerva, Athena, and Sylphius," he said while looking at each one and naming them. Before finishing this meeting, "Diana, what name have you chosen for them?" she said while looking at the children. The goddess of destruction of Universe 7, with great effort, stood up and took the children in her arms. "Mirak named our boy Kampa and I named our girl Miu." Several years later, on a new planet that had just been created, to be the home of the next goddess of destruction, mother and daughter were sitting at the top of a mountain watching the sunset. "Do I really have to be a goddess of destruction?" asked a young Miu, who physically looked like a 9-year-old girl. "Yes, honey, but don't worry, Whis can help you with your work," Diana was saying, trying to cheer up her daughter, who sighed resignedly and then looked at the older white-haired woman. "Mother, how did you meet my father?" the young Miu asked. "Honey, what is that question about?" her mother said with a bit of curiosity. "It's just that. I wonder if I will also be able to fall in love with someone." "You are the only gods in falling in love," little Miu said, looking at her mother with excitement. "Ah, so that's what it was. Well, you see, I met your father when he was still a mortal. I used to like fighting against strong guys. One day he showed up and I challenged him to a duel in which I lost. But I think that during those hours of combat, we fell in love with each other," she replied, then gave her daughter a loving hug. "Muum," she exclaimed with a small embarrassed smile. "One day you will meet someone who will make you feel strange. You will think about them all the time, and your heart will race 1,000 miles an hour when you see them. When that happens to you, you will know that you fell in love. He whispered in her ear in a calm tone, "I love you, Mom. I don't want you to go," exclaimed Mia while tightly hugging her mother as she began to cry. Diana felt her heart break in half as she saw and heard her daughter crying. She didn't want to leave, she wanted to stay, to see her grow up and become a woman, as well as a powerful goddess of destruction. But Mirai had promoted her to be the leader of the Royal Guard, a group of 5 powerful gods to maintain order in reality itself against any threat, as they didn't want another disaster to arise. "That I don't want to leave either, my girl, but Mirai-sama's orders are absolute, but it won't be a goodbye forever, it will be a goodbye for now," said Diana, making her daughter look up to see her in the eyes. "Sniff a see you soon sniff?" I asked doubtfully. "The day will come when we will reunite, and on that day I will meet the great woman you will become," I told her while I began to tear up. "Seriously? You swear to me?" she said with hope and a half smile. "I promise you," he replied while showing her his little finger. "It will be our promise," said Miu as she joined her pinky with her mother's. Years passed. There was a teenager Miu walking with difficulty while carrying a kind of black box tied to her wrists, as the path behind her was disappearing. "Faster, Mrs. Miu, or you'll fall into the void," shouted Whis as he watched his student train. "Shut up! Aya, aya!" she screamed, straining to walk several more meters, until the training materials fell to the ground. "Well done, Mrs. Miu," said the angel as he made the training box disappear. "Now yes, Whis, find me rivals to go test my strength," exclaimed the goddess of destruction with a smile. "Ho ho ho, you haven't changed, Mrs. Miu. You are identical to your mother," Whis responded with a nostalgic look while Miu felt proud of herself after receiving such praise since she admired her mother very much. Thousands of years later, those Sians are making a mess in the universe. Who do they think they are to wipe out a population? They disgust me, and that King Vegeta thinks he's all that. I should put an end to them, but they are too far away, he said, sighing with annoyance. "Mrs. Miu, why don't you ask someone to take care of it?" suggested Whis while the image of someone appeared from his staff. "Who is that?" asked the goddess of destruction, raising an eyebrow. "He is the one who orders the Sians what to do. His name is Frisia," the angel replied seriously. He surely uses them for his own benefit. "Good that he takes care of the Sians," he said cheerfully. While Miu continued to talk with Whis, the oracle fish appeared and seemed to be in a hurry. "Miss Miu," it was shouting as it approached. Miu directed her gaze towards the oracle fish. "Oh, it's you. What do you need?" "Mrs. Miu, I just had a vision and you were in it," he said nervously. Really? And what did you see?" she asked with curiosity while Whis tried to locate Freezer. "In 20 years, a powerful arch-rival will appear. A Super Saiyan god," exclaimed the oracle fish. "Really? Awesome. Finally, someone will appear. Whis, hurry up already so when I come back I can sleep through those years," she shouted, a bit anxious and annoyed at the same time. That same night, the goddess of destruction was sleeping and would do so for 20 years. Meanwhile, Whis was playing chess with the oracle fish. "Do you think your vision will come true? Seriously, a Super Saiyan god?" Whis asked. "Serious Lighthats, right? I'm not mistaken," he replied before moving a piece. I find it unlikely. I haven't seen a Super Saiyan god since Yamashi millions of years ago," said Whis after sighing. "But there is something I hid from Mrs. Miu," said the fish, drawing Whis' attention. "Seriously, have you hidden something from him? You know what he will do if he finds out, right? Ho ho ho, listen to me, this arch-rival will be the love you have been waiting for during these millions of years," said the fish, surprising Whis. "What? I exclaimed with huge astonishment, and a flashback. Goku and Miu separated their foreheads after the memories had finished. Wow. I don't know what to say, Goku said while processing things. Hehe, it's okay darling. You can always ask me anything. Now it would be my turn, right? Miu asked, smiling. True, but I don't have that ability, Goku was telling his partner. It's okay this time. You'll guide me, he said kindly while bringing his head close to the Sien, and both appeared in his mind, where he guided Miu through his memories as she had done. Author's note: I will not tell Goku's story since it is the same, only that he rejected Milk and Bulma gave him the house and the credit card. I feel guilty that you didn't grow up with your parents, Miu said while separating her forehead from the Sien's. Relax, it was for the best or else I wouldn't have met you, right? Goku was asking while he stood up to get out of the shower. Miu blushed a lot and turned to look away since she had seen the Sien's lower part again, who dried himself and put on a robe. I'll order pizza for dinner. Does that sound good? He asked as he walked towards the door. Why yes, pizza will be fine, Miu replied, and then the Sien came out of the bathroom. Instantly she also got out of the shower, dried herself, and put on the robe. Something peculiar was that Goku's robe was orange and Miu's was white. It was already 11 at night and both had gone to bed, still wearing their bathrobes since Miu had suggested wearing them to feel more comfortable, to which Goku could not deny that it was indeed more comfortable to be like this. I love you, Miu told him before giving the Sien a short kiss, but as they separated, Goku kissed her again, but this time with passion, causing the goddess of destruction's heart to start racing. They separated due to lack of air and then kissed again, but this time a battle of tongues ensued with Miu as the victor, who began to give him many short kisses and then kissed down the Sien's neck, going down to his chest. They stayed looking at each other for a few seconds before Goku got up to kiss Miu, who began to take off the Sien's robe while he started kissing her around the neck, trying to take off Miu's robe with his hands. They both did it out of inertia. When they were left naked, Goku no longer knew what to do. The only one who knew how to continue was Miu, who was biting her lip. Goku, please, she said as she lay down beside the Sien. Let's make love, she said with a huge blush. The Sien didn't quite understand what to do, so he got on top of her and kissed her passionately. Both their blood was boiling, and their breathing was getting faster and faster. My love, she whispered while biting her lip, and seconds later, she turned to the Sien as she positioned herself on top of him. What are you doing? He asked curiously while breathing heavily. Note: I will remove the lemon to avoid problems with YouTube, the creator in the description. That felt wonderful, Miu said while resting her head on the Sien's chest. So this is making love. Can we do it again? Goku asked the blonde girl, who looked at him still blushing and nodded. The Sien smiled and then left Miu under him, the goddess understanding what he wanted to do. The Sien opened his legs inviting her to enter. At the moment of doing so they both moaned with pleasure. Goku began to ram her hard, making Miu's breasts bounce. This had hypnotized the Sien, making him excite even more. At one point Miu hugged the Sien's waist with her legs and ran her hands around his neck after the enormous excitement and pleasure, so much so that she already had a lost look and was only moaning. The moment they came again, Miu lost her mind and was guided by pleasure, since the Sien despite having come was still penetrating it, and if it was for one more hour, until he couldn't take it anymore, while Miu that night slept peacefully as she had never done before. The next day Miu, who was overflowing with happiness, was preparing breakfast. You could even hear her whistling a melody. Good morning, Miu, said Goku as he entered the kitchen. The goddess turned to look at him and went to give him his good morning kiss. How did you wake up, my tiger, she said, winking before going back to continue preparing breakfast. Very well. After what happened last night, I slept like a baby, he said, scratching the back of his neck. I also slept like never before, Miu replied while making some scrambled eggs. Knock knock, Goku went to open the door. "Good morning, Mr. Whis," he said cheerfully. The angel felt something different about him, even his key seemed different. It was not the aggressive one he always had, now it was calm. "Good morning, Mr. Goku. How are you feeling for today's training?" said Whis as he entered the house and headed to the kitchen. "Wonderful!" exclaimed Goku with a smile. Upon arriving in the kitchen, Whis nearly dropped his jaw to the floor upon seeing Miu cooking more energetically than usual, while whistling and even doing a little dance. "Oh Whis, you arrived early," said Miu as she saw him and quickly went to greet him so that the breakfast wouldn't burn. "Very well. Something certainly happened here," said Whis, gaining the attention of both. "Why does he say that?" asked Goku while setting the table. "Both seem happier than usual," replied Whis, looking at them both. It's because last night we gave ourselves to each other," said Miu, downplaying it to sound cool in front of Whis. "Ho ho ho, it turns out Mrs. Miu is quite the tease," he said with a blush while teasing his disciple. "Try to be clever and you won't have breakfast." Miu quickly replied, "Mr. Goku, how can I help you?" she asked Goku, who continued bringing things to the table. Somewhere in the universe. "How much longer?" shouted a rather irritated Bulma. "Mr. Popo told us it would be a month, so we have a couple of weeks ahead," Krillin replied while exercising. I should have brought some entertainment," exclaimed Bulma as she sat down with her arms crossed. Unknown place outside a planet, there was a ship that belonged to the cruelest person in the universe. "Lord Frieza, did you summon me?" asked one of his most trusted soldiers. "Zarbon, I want you to contact the Jinya Special Forces and tell them to start gathering the Dragon Balls that are on Namek," he said while looking out into space through the window. "As you command, Mr. Freezer," answered the called Zarbon as he exited the cabin. "Soon my wish will be fulfilled, ho ho ho," Freezer was saying, laughing with great malice. 3 weeks later, our protagonists had just finished lunch a few minutes ago, but this time they ordered food from a Chinese restaurant, the number of which they had written down when they went out for dinner a few nights ago. Yeah, I'm full," said Goku as he leaned back in the chair and rubbed his stomach. "Ho ho ho, with all that you two eat, there should be no doubt," Whis replied as he directed his gaze to Miu, who seemed tired and it showed on her face as she was not radiant as always. Suddenly, the goddess stood up, covering her mouth with one hand, and ran to the house. "Mrs. Miu?" asked Whis with an arched eyebrow upon seeing how the goddess had left. "She's going to return the food again. I told her to eat less, but she's a glutton," Goku commented in front of the angel's concern. Goku, Kaya-sama? Is that you?" asked the Saiyan upon hearing that familiar voice. "Yes, Goku, I wanted to inform you that Yamcha and the others have just arrived, so I will train them until they are revived," the North Kai was telling the Saiyan. "Really? That's great. Wait, and Piccolo?" he asked with curiosity. "Piccolo arrived a week ago, but he was revived and sent to Namek. Apparently, he wasn't the only one who was revived, Kami-sama was too. Didn't you notice?" replied Kaya-sama, calming the Saiyan and planting the seed of doubt. "I'm glad to hear that, but I hadn't realized that Kami-sama had been revived," he said cheerfully while smiling. "Your greetings will be given, Goku. By the way, good luck with Mrs. Miu, goodbye," he said, saying goodbye and cutting off communication. Beep beep beep. It was the sound of a little device that Miu had, as she came running. "Goku, honey, this thing started to ring here," Miu said as she left the house, and before throwing it to him, the Saiyan caught the communication device. "It's Bulma," he shouted, surprised, as he pressed a button to answer. "So, the famous Bulma, huh?" he said while approaching her with a kind smile. "One moment, Mrs. Miu calls her private, also, please come with me inside the house to take care of your discomfort," he said to the goddess of destruction while taking her by the dress and leading her away. "Don't wait, Whis. I want to hear what they're saying," she screamed while kicking like a little girl. "Hello," said Goku after accepting the call. "Goku. Finally I got in touch with Earth," shouted a relieved Bulma for finally being able to contact the Sien. "Bulma? Tell me what's happening, have they arrived on Namek?" Goku asked seriously and a bit anxiously. "We arrived 8 days ago, but I couldn't establish communication because the machine was destroyed, but I finally managed to repair it," Bulma responded, now a bit calmer. "8 days? He asked anxiously to hear Brief's response. "Yes. Also, we were able to revive Piccolo and we brought him here. We also asked to revive Kami-sama, so the Dragon Balls on Earth should be usable again," she said with huge happiness. "Awesome. Then I'll get ready to go there," Goku replied while they smiled. "Hurry up please, we have problems here, we even ran into Vegeta and we have teamed up since we have a common enemy," she said in a tone of concern that worried the Sien. "Vegeta? I never thought he would show up so soon. Tell me if they are allied with him. Who are they facing?" Goku asked with a serious tremble. "Right now Vegeta, Krillin, Piccolo and some Namekians are facing someone named Frieza," Bulma exclaimed. Goku fell silent upon hearing that name, and the memory of the conversation he had weeks ago with Miu came to his mind. "Give me that transmitter, darling," said a Miu who had lost her smile and turned serious. "Goku," shouted Bulma upon not hearing the Sien's voice for a few minutes. The Sien, without hesitation, gave the communicator to his girlfriend. "Tell me everything about the current situation," Miu said as she raised her gaze to silently look at the sky. "Who are you? Where did Goku go?" shouted Bulma upon hearing the voice of the goddess of destruction. Miu sighed as she held her forehead with 2 fingers to not lose her patience. "It doesn't matter who I am, tell me what is happening and we will leave in a few minutes," Miu told Whis while looking at him. "What?" Bulma shouted from the other side of the communicator. "How long will it take us to get to Namek?" Miu quietly asked her teacher. About 42 minutes approximately," was replied to the white-haired girl, who nodded upon hearing. "Bulma, take a moment to calm down and tell me the situation without leaving out any details. Trust me please," Miu replied in a gentle tone that made the blue-haired girl take a deep breath and stop thinking about who she was talking to. In fact, if she was with Goku it meant there were no problems. Miu, well, too. Miss Friend of Goku, a few days after we arrived, some soldiers named Zarbon and Dodoria started to appear, along with others who called themselves the Jinya Force. Luckily, Vegeta allied with us and we were able to win, but many were injured. Unfortunately, 3 days ago Frieza arrived. Vegeta, Nail, and Piccolo confronted him, but the bastard transformed and killed several Namekians. Although Vegeta, Piccolo, and Nail escaped, Bulma finished recounting with a tone of annoyance and helplessness for not being able to do anything to help. "I understand," she replied in a tone of understanding. "Don't worry, Goku and I will head over there and deal with that scum," she responded in a tone that made Bulma tear up a little as she felt relieved. She sensed that the girl was not lying to her and then ended the communication to return the transmitter to Goku. "So you will go with me to Namek?" the Sien asked while raising an eyebrow. "Of course. Do you want to arrive in a month and have your friends die?" "Of course not," she replied with a smile and then turned to look at Whis who was listening attentively. "Are we leaving already?" she asked the angel. "As you order, Miss Miu," was said while looking at his staff for the route to Namekusei. The goddess of destruction approached the angel and placed a hand on his shoulder, then turned to Goku. "Go ahead darling. Hold on to me and we will leave immediately," she said in a kind tone. The Sien was a bit surprised to know they would arrive in 42 minutes, but it wouldn't be strange after spending just over a month with his girlfriend Miu and training with Whis. So after a few seconds, he nodded and moved closer to place his hand on Miu's shoulder. "Don't be so formal, darling," said the goddess of destruction to her partner, and then took the hand that Goku had placed on her shoulder and moved it to her abdomen. The Sien, in response, placed his other free hand on the goddess's abdomen to embrace her. "Is this better, Miu?" he asked, smiling at her. "Phew, much better." "Whis! Let's go!" exclaimed the goddess, raising her voice a little, causing the angel to nod, and thus the three set off towards Namekusei. Planet Namek. Vegeta, Nail, and Piccolo were managing to recover from their injuries thanks to Dende, who had the power to heal others. Given that, he was attending to the wounded, one of whom was Krillin, who was now unconscious. Damn it! Despite having increased my powers after the fight against Frieza, it's still not enough to stop him. Vegeta said helplessly while smashing a rock. "I know how you feel, Vegeta, but hitting that rock won't help at all. We need to find a way to strengthen ourselves to finish off that pest," Piccolo told the Sien as he stood up. Nail, on the other hand, was watching all the injured Namekians who had survived Frieza's attacks, and after thinking for a while, he turned to the Sien and Piccolo. "I have an idea that might work for us," he said seriously to both. The two turned to look at the Namekian, and it was Vegeta who spoke. "What are you plotting, insect?" he said in an annoyed tone. "I will give my strength to Piccolo so we can be more useful against Frieza," Nail replied, leaving both surprised. "Are you talking about assimilation?" exclaimed Piccolo upon realizing what he was referring to. "That's right. Please, Piccolo," exclaimed Nail for the Namekian to absorb his strength. Ho, what are insignificant flies like you plotting? "Freezer!" screamed the three warriors upon hearing the voice of the evil Emperor. "Vegeta, after our last confrontation, you have become more powerful. Congratulations!" the tyrant said while applauding him in a gesture of congratulations. "Task. Stop mocking me, insect!" shouted the Sien and launched himself to attack Freezer, punching him in the face. The Emperor quickly countered with an attack using his tail, but Vegeta dodged it with a spin and then delivered a powerful kick to the Emperor's ribs, sending him crashing into a mountain. Vegeta was astonished as he looked at his hands, and slowly a smile began to form on his face. "I can do it. I can keep up with him, and I even have the advantage," he exclaimed before charging to attack Freezer again. Meanwhile, Piccolo and Nail saw a ray of hope as they watched how Vegeta was superior to the Emperor of Evil. "It's now or never, Piccolo. We must help Vegeta," Nail shouted to urge him to assimilate it quickly. "Tisk, damn it, I'll do it. But if you feel uncomfortable, I will reject you, understood?" Piccolo told him while placing his palm on his chest. "Of course, do it at once," shouted Nail, smiling at him, and without further ado, Piccolo processed it, significantly increasing his power. "Incredible," he whispered while opening and closing his hand at the increase of power. Then he saw towards the village since they had not noticed Freezer's presence and Dende was still healing the Namekians. "Well, we will go for it all or nothing," he whispered again and flew towards where the battle was. Meanwhile, Bulma was running out of a cave since the ship was hidden there. "I have to tell the kids the news. Damn, I shouldn't have stayed talking with my dad. Now I've lost track of time," Bulma said as she ran. A few minutes later she arrived at the village where Dende was located. "Bulma, where were you?" the young Dende shouted upon hearing Bulma arrived. "I'm sorry, I went to the ship and managed to contact a friend who is already on his way and will defeat Frieza," she replied to Dende, who opened his eyes in surprise. "Defeat Frieza? Are you sure? He's very powerful," Dende said to Bulma while finishing healing the last injured person. "Of course he will. I'm very sure he will," she said, filled with tremendous confidence. "Why are you so sure?" she asked, seeing that her spirits were so high. Bulma smiled at her and said, "It's a gut feeling." On the battlefield, Piccolo had arrived just as Frieza was emerging from some rubble, badly injured, but Vegeta was giving his all. "Galik Fu!" shouted the Saiyan, launching the technique at the Emperor who, incredibly, could barely hold it back. "I must help him as soon as possible," Piccolo thought as he brought 2 fingers to his forehead and began to gather a huge amount of ki as time went by, and little by little Frieza began to counter Vegeta's technique. "Makanko Sapo!" shouted the name Kian before launching his technique and hitting Frieza, causing a huge explosion thanks to the help of Vegeta's attack. "We did it," Piccolo thought while smiling, but little by little the smoke screen dissipated and there he was with serious wounds but still smiling. "Ho ho ho, let's put an end to this warming once and for all. Do you agree, Vegeta, Mr. Nankian?" said Frieza while dusting off his shoulders. "What are you saying, insect? You will die here and now," shouted an enraged Vegeta upon hearing that arrogant tone from the evil emperor. Frieza smiled subtly. "I didn't expect the other named Kian to arrive," he said, glancing sideways at Piccolo. "It seems I have no choice," he whispered while starting to laugh. "What are you laughing at?" exclaimed Vegeta and Piccolo. Frieza stopped smiling and looked at both of them with a death stare. "Let me show you my latest transformation," he yelled as a purple aura began to surround him. "You last TR transformation." Both warriors whispered as they swallowed hard and watched Frieza finish transforming. "Ho ho ho, very well. Now who wants to be the first to die?" he said while looking at both warriors who were in shock. "I know. Your attack was the one that hurt me," he shouted and then shot a beam at Piccolo's leg. "Ah!" Piccolo screamed in pain as he fell but managed to kneel on his other leg. "Hoo hoo ho hoo!" And now, it's Vegeta's turn, he shouted, launching several beams at the Saiyan who could do nothing and fell to the ground as he was pierced through his legs and shoulders. "Gag! Damn it!" Vegeta said as he started to bleed and his body no longer responded. Frieza approached the Saiyan and began to hit him over and over again in the face but without killing him, as he wanted him to suffer. "Hey! Enough with the damn little vermin!" Piccolo shouted, ready to launch another Makanko Sapo while he gathered energy as they beat Vegeta. "Makanko Sa, Gay Aog!" shouted in pain as he lost his arm. "Don't think I forgot about you, named Kian," he said before punching him in the stomach followed by a kick sending him a few meters back and then throwing him for another while piercing his abdomen. "Gai, you are a bastard!" Piccolo shouted in enormous pain. Frieza smiled and then turned to look at Vegeta. "And now you die!" he shouted, launching another blast at the Saiyan but it was stopped by another person. "Kakaroto," Vegeta whispered upon seeing the Saiyan Goku. Piccolo shouted with a slight smile upon seeing him arrive. "Hey who the heck are you?" he asked Goku, but Goku would turn his back and get to the level of Vegeta. "Hey, that's bad. I didn't bring any hermit seeds, but can you hold on until I defeat this bastard?" he asked seriously to Vegeta, who was surprised by what was said. "What is this?" He deflected Frieza's beam like it was nothing. "Besides, I feel a huge aura of supremacy emanating from him, and he is confident that he can defeat Frieza. Could it be? Could Kakarot be the legendary Super Saiyan?" Vegeta thought. "Hey, who do you think you are to ignore me? Die!" he screamed while charging ki in his finger to unleash a powerful lightning bolt, but suddenly he felt like he was lacking oxygen. He brought his hands to his neck to try to breathe, but suddenly his entire body felt great pressure and he fell to the ground. "What is this? Is this the power of this guy? No, it can't be," Frieza thought. Then he closed his eyes for a few seconds and saw red eyes watching him. Impossible! Frieza yelled as he tried to recover. With great effort he looked up at the sky and saw the only person he never wanted to see again. Miu! The Emperor whispered upon seeing the goddess of destruction to you. I am still Lady Miu. I heard the Emperor as if it were a whisper in his ear, but she remained up there, sadistically smiling, making the Emperor shudder. Freezer, right? Goku asked him while recovering and looking at the Emperor. The cold demon looked at the Sien, and luckily for him, he felt his body return to normal. He glanced up at the sky, and Miu was no longer there. Tisk, who the hell are you? The Emperor shouted, regaining his composure. My name is Son Goku. I am a Sien raised on Earth and I came here to defeat you, damn murderer, the Sien replied seriously. Ho ho ho. You, defeat me? Freezer said arrogantly. Suddenly Goku disappeared from the sight of the evil Emperor, who in an instant appeared on another stage, a place quite far from where they were. There were no mountains now, it was just an open field to fight. The demon felt something fall into his mouth, and when he passed his hand he saw it was blood, making him furious. Now you will pay for this, stupid monkey. He shouted, increasing his power. Get ready for my 50%. He yelled in rage and lunged at the Sien. Goku barely smiled and whispered, Kaioken X20, and stopped Freezer's punch, countering with a knee to the abdomen, pushing Freezer back, who managed to hit him in the face with his tail. Not bad, Frieza said with a slight smile. I'll tell you something. Better leave this planet and don't do any more of your misdeeds, is that clear? Goku said seriously. Damn worm, who do you think I am? I am the Emperor, the great Frieza, and you will die in my hands. He screamed full of fury as he increased his power. Then that will be your definitive answer. Then Miu was right. You don't deserve to live, Goku said seriously as the Kaioken's aura disappeared. Freezer, upon hearing the name of the goddess of destruction, got a little scared but was surprised that the Sien knew her. Do you know the goddess of destruction? Freezer shouted, not stopping to increase his power. Of course, after all, she is my girlfriend, he said with a smile. In the skies, Miu smiled upon hearing the Sien, as she and Whis were watching everything. Girlfriend? What is that? Well, it doesn't matter, after all, you worms will die, he said, smiling after unleashing all his power. Start to tremble, Freezer, because I'm about to be the Super Saiyan you have always feared, he said with a slight smile. Impossible. It was supposed to be just a legend. You're definitely lying. Goku began to scream as a golden aura started to envelop him, caused his hair to change to a golden color and stand on end, while the color of his eyes changed to green. Freezer was in shock at seeing the change that the Sien had undergone, and without waiting, he launched a blast at the Sien's face, but it barely made him bleed a little. I see you can destroy planets but not a person, he said with a slight smile. Mr. Whis, please take Vegeta and Piccolo to Bulma, who is in a nearby village. Tell her to revive the others and to come back to Earth, please, he was saying to the angel as they were in communication thanks to the staff. Very well, but remember, Mrs. Miu is worried about you, so don't let your guard down, Whis replied before communicating to Miu what the Sien requested. I know, don't worry, he replied before refocusing on the battle, and without further ado, he launched an attack on Freezer, punching him in the abdomen. However, the villain, with great effort, grabbed the Sien's head and kneed him, which Goku stopped with his arms and spun him around, managing to deliver a powerful kick to Freezer that sent him crashing into a rock. Hey, shouted Goku, launching a Kamehameha instantly. but the villain barely managed to dodge it and countered by launching several beams which Goku was repelling while flying towards him, and at the last moment ducking down and kicking him with both legs, sending him upwards and then appearing above him to grab him by the tail and start spinning at an enormous speed before throwing him down to create a massive crater. Vegeta and Piccolo were still on the ground, severely injured, but suddenly a strange figure appeared, and behind him came a woman. "It's been a while, Prince Vegeta," Miu said, smiling at the Saiyan, which surprised him. "T2. I know you," I managed to say with great effort. Miu looked at both and then sighed. "Was healing them would be a hassle to carry them around," she said to the angel. "As you command, Mrs. Miu," he replied with a slight smile, and then cured both of them, who did not understand why the help. "Let's go with Bulma. By the way, thank my Goku for the help," he said before flying away with Whis. "My Goku." The two wondered, not understanding what it referred to. Perhaps it was their new teacher, and then they flew off in the direction where Bulma was located. Miu and Whis saw all the injured Namekians, and another young man who was recovering since he had healed them. Next to him was a blue-haired woman talking to one of the injured, who was a bald man. Bulma called Miu as she approached the named one. The brief turned around and saw the woman approaching her. "That voice, it's you," she said as a smile started to form on her face. "That's right, and as I told you, here we are." "And the Dragon Balls?" she asked with curiosity and urgency, as she wanted this whole matter to end. "We have them stored away, by the way. Now will you tell me who you are?" She asked this with curiosity. "I am the goddess of destruction, Miu, and for some time now I have been Goku's girlfriend. And let me tell you that I have heard a lot about you," she said with a slight smile. "G goddess? No, wait. I mean, girlfriend? Wow, that Goku is quite the flirt after all, haha. I hope you've heard good things about me, hehe," she said, extending her hand. Miu smiled again and shook Bulma's hand. "Thank you for taking care of my Goku all this time," she said cheerfully. Haha. "Oh please, I should thank him for taking care of all of us. I hope we can be friends. I should call her Mrs. Miu, right?" she said a bit shyly. "Jaa. You can call me Miu. You should feel honored, ha ha ha," she said while laughing with her hands on her hips. "Cough cough. Mrs. Miu, do you not forget something important?" Whis said, gaining the attention of the goddess of destruction. Right. Bulma, quickly the Dragon Balls. Bring back your friends and return to Earth, Whis, and I will stay with Goku," she told Brief, "so they can make the wishes." Back in the fight, Goku was having a considerable advantage over Freezer, who was on the ground with several injuries. "Tell me one thing, is that all there is?" Goku asked seriously. "Tisk, damned, ha ha ha, this planet, it will be destroyed in 5 minutes." Screaming, launching an attack towards the interior of the planet. "You're a wretch." Goku enraged and kicked him hard and then took him by the head and hit him on the ground again and then threw him against a rock, but with great difficulty the villain got back on his feet. "Damn unfortunate ape, do you think that will be enough to defeat Bad Big Frieza?" he shouted angrily and with enormous speed launched a supernova attack. The Saiyan was surprised by the powerful attack he made in seconds. Hey, Goku shouted, quickly launching a Kamehameha and hitting Freezer's technique, which were evenly matched. "Ha ha, all that's left is to buy time and you will die along with this planet," Freezer said while increasing the power of his technique a little more. Goku, faced with this, began to increase his power more and more, thus starting to win the clash of powers, but several explosions began to occur, releasing some potent toxic gases, and one of them exploded next to Goku, causing him to inhale the gas and lose focus, thus starting to lose the clash of powers. But fortunately, at the last moment, he used all his power and composed himself, managing to win the clash of abilities and hit Freezer with a powerful Kamehameha, which made him lose his tail and one arm. Hug. Damn! Freezer cried in pain. With the others, Dende had summoned Poroma and then he intervened. My first wish is that you send everyone to Earth except me, Whis, Goku, and Freezer, he told Poroma. Mrs. Miu, wishes are requested in the Namekian language, Dende told her. Calm down, he will fulfill my wish or he will know why I am the goddess of destruction, she replied, smiling kindly. After that, the dragon sweated and then his eyes shone, and thus everyone disappeared from the planet except for the four of them. Then the dragon said something that the goddess did not understand. Oh, Mrs. Miu, it seems that Wish used the energy of the other two. The dragon will leave, was said while laughing. Tisk, how useless, disappear at once, annoyed Miu said to the dragon, who vanished and then along with was left the planet to observe the fight through the staff since Goku had asked them not to interfere in his battle. Give up already, you can't defeat me, the Saiyan said seriously. Shut up! Shut up! The Emperor was shouting as he threw several bolts of lightning, but the Saiyan easily countered them since Freezer's power had started to diminish. All right. You asked for it. Goku shouted as the golden aura appeared and he launched a kick at the leg. Crayock was the sound of the bone breaking. The Saiyan took the villain by the head and then gave him a headbutt, smashing his head against the ground and finishing with another powerful kick that sent him crashing against some rocks. Well, it's over, said Goku, but suddenly he lost his Super Saiyan transformation and fell to his knees on the ground while he began to spit blood, struggling to breathe at the same time. Goku! Shouted Miu, who descended from space in seconds and took the Saiyan in her arms. Whis also appeared, Mrs. Miu. There are only a few seconds left until the planet is destroyed, he warned. The goddess of destruction carried Goku and then took Whis by the shoulder. Let's go! She shouted and off they went. Upon reaching space, the planet exploded, but it didn't hurt the three of them. Whis! Heal him! Heal him! Miu cried desperately, seeing how the Saiyan was slowly fading away. I can't do it here in space, since Mr. Goku can't breathe in it like we do, Whis replied seriously. Then, let's go to the nearest planet, said the goddess quite nervously. As you order, the cause must have been that gas that exploded next to him in his fight against Frieza, was commented, but Miu was only looking at Goku. The goddess started to tear up as she placed her forehead against his. Please hold on. Goku! Don't leave me, she whispered with fear. The Saiyan barely opened his eyes, finding himself face to face with the tearful eyes of the goddess of destruction. I am sorry. I thought he would change his mind, he whispered to the white-haired woman. You're a fool, fool, fool. Hold on a little longer, love. Whis, how much longer? He exclaimed to the angel. 1 minute, Mrs. Miu, the angel quickly replied. The Saiyan spat out a huge amount of blood onto the white dress that Miu was wearing. I am sorry. I love you, Miu, Goku whispered as he began to close his eyes. No, don't you dare leave, Goku, because I am pregnant, I shouted while crying harder. The Saiyan opened one eye with great effort and tried to say something, but Miu silenced him with a short kiss. Don't strain yourself, just hold on. We've arrived, said Whis as he landed on the planet. Miu grabbed Goku again with both hands while Whis made his staff shine as he placed it over the Saiyan, and after a few seconds he removed it. I eliminated the toxic gas from his system. Now he will sleep for a few days. It is advisable that he rests here, I said to Miu seriously. So we'll do that, we'll stay on this planet until then. By the way, where are we? I asked him with curiosity and enormous relief, knowing that the Saiyan would recover. Let me see, was said while checking his staff and then looking at Miu to tell her. Ydrit. Miu narrates, I was really surprised to hear that we were on Ydrit. It's very different from the last time. Its atmosphere and energy have changed since the last time. But the good thing is that we were on a familiar planet and with people I know. Let's talk to him so he can give us a place to sleep, I told Whis, and we headed towards the top of a mountain. Upon arriving at that place, there was a small house. It was a bit humble. The lights were on, and outside in a chair was a person holding a cup while looking at the moon. I see that you are still with your hobby Pibera, Miu said to the person as she approached him. The one called Pibera smiled and lowered his gaze to see the goddess of destruction approaching. It's been a long time, Mrs. Miu. What brings you here? I was planning to leave as soon as my Goku recovered, but was told me we were in Yidrit. And the truth is it's very different from the last time, Miu replied while looking around. Yidrit has changed since he saved us from those villains. Luckily it was all for the best. So that boy is his partner. What happened to him? Pyrala asked curiously. He inhaled toxic gas from a planet in the midst of destruction while fighting against Frisia. Luckily was healed him so that he wouldn't wake up until a week later, the goddess replied while looking fondly at the Sin. Wow, against Frisia? If he is here it means he won. So when he recovers, he wants you to train him, right? She asked her with a slight smile. How did you realize? I don't remember you being perceptive, Miu replied playfully, sticking out her tongue. I had in mind, sounded quite suspicious, especially coming from you, Mrs. Miu, the Yidrosian said. Haha, okay, I admit it, I want you to teach him spirit control. He has a lot of potential and plenty of motivation, so you'll enjoy having him as a student, Miu said, smiling at him. I understand. Then let's start by helping him recover. Please follow me, he told the goddess of destruction, and then entered the house to guide her to a room and lay Goku on a bed. Thanks Pyrala. By the way, can you bring us something to eat? I'm starving and I'm sure Whis is too, Miu said with her hands on her abdomen. Ha! I'm sorry for not offering before. You'll have to wait for me to cook, so if you'll excuse me, I'll go start, said the Yardatrian before leaving the room and going to the kitchen. Miu took the opportunity and went back outside to Whis, who was sitting there staring into nothing. Pyrala went to cook us something, she said as she sat down next to the angel. Mrs. Miu was called seriously while directing his gaze towards her. What do you have in mind? He asked her with curiosity. What do you mean? I asked for food because I'm hungry and you surely are too, Miu replied while shrugging. I wasn't talking about that. I mean, doing everything you do for Son Goku. We even returned to Yidrit after 1,000 years. Will you also complete the training you left pending here? Whis asked her with great curiosity. Whis, Miu called while directing her gaze to the sky. I said it once and I will say it again. I love Son Goku. I don't care if he is strong or mortal. I love him with all my being. Even our family is on the way. Then she looked back at the angel. He wants to be strong. That's why I asked you to train him, and if you refused, I would do it myself. As for the training I left here, I will pick it up and finish it if I can. Hee, Miu replied and then smiled. Mrs. Miu was whispered with a slight smile while watching the goddess look back up at the sky. Undoubtedly her mother would be very proud of the person she has become. Really unknowingly she is following in her mother's footsteps. I still remember when Mrs. Diana completed the spirit control training, the angel thought to himself, reminiscing nostalgically about the old times. Day by day passed, Miu never left Goku's side. She even bathed him every day, while Whis and Pyrala talked almost all the time until finally the Sin opened his eyes. Goku was gradually opening his eyes. The first thing he did after fully opening them was to look to the side and see Miu sleeping in a chair. The Sin got up, dressed since he was only in boxers, and when he did, he took Miu's chin and planted a small short kiss on her before whispering, "Good morning, Miu," in her ear, causing the goddess of destruction to wake up and, seeing the Sin in front of her, jumped on him and started kissing him all over his face. "Goku! You finally woke up," she said before resting her head on the Sin's chest and starting to sob. The Sien started to gently stroke the goddess's hair. "I'm sorry, I handled things poorly, but well, we learn from mistakes, right?" "Hee," the Sien said cheerfully. Miu looked at him with her watery eyes and then rested her face on his chest again. "Silly, I thought I would lose you. I was trying not to give up, but my body wouldn't respond. I felt like everything inside me was being torn apart. But when you gave me that news, it gave me enough strength to hold on until the pain disappeared, and then I passed out," Gaku replied while scratching the back of his neck. Mia smiled softly and then looked at the Sien. A slight blush had taken over her cheeks, "So," she said while playing with her fingers. Gaku smiled and put his hands on Miu's waist and then lifted her up. "You have made me the happiest man in the whole world." The goddess hugged the Sien. "I love you, my dear," she whispered before kissing him passionately, but suddenly the door opened. "Is Mrs. Miu here?" Pyrala asked politely until she saw the couple scene. "Oh, my apologies," she apologized and quickly left the room. Gaku and Miu separated from the kiss and looked at each other for a few seconds before bursting into laughter. "Come, I'm going to introduce you to our master," Miu said to the Sien before taking his hand. Gaku was surprised. Had he heard correctly? "Did you say, our master?" But he was stopped by a finger on his lips. "Courtesy of Miu. Honey, just follow me, okay?" she said with a tender smile and a kind tone that hypnotized the Sien, who could only nod at his partner. After leaving the room, they went outside, and there was Whis on one side, talking through his staff, and on the other side was the Yadrashin apparently meditating. "Where are we?" Gaku asked as soon as they went outside and saw that it was neither Namek nor Earth. "We are in Yadrat, and that man sitting over there will be our teacher. Pyrale. Stop doing those weird things and come here," I shouted at the Yardrashin, who stopped meditating and came over to where they both were. "I see that Mr. Gaku has woken up," I commented upon seeing the Sien. "Don't act like that. You saw us kissing." "Well, anyway, Gaku, this is Pyrala. He is the leader of the Yardrashins, and he will teach us spirit control," Miu said very excitedly. I'm sorry, I was looking for her. "So, do you want to start right now or after lunch?" asked the Yardrashin, causing Gaku and Miu to exchange glances complicatedly. How good the food was," said Gaku while leaning back in the chair. "I must admit that you are very skilled in the kitchen, Pyrala," Miu told the Yardrashin while giving him a thumbs up. Thanks, your compliments honor me. Well, it's about time, right?" he asked both of them and then saw Whis, who continued talking through his staff. "Isn't he going to eat?" "That's right. We have to work off this food by training, right, Gaku?" Miu exclaimed excitedly, looking at the Sien, who stood up quickly. "Yes. I can't wait to find out what kind of training we're going to have," said Gaku, shaking with excitement. Well," Pyrala said, looking to the side, "Ms. Miu is halfway through her training. Now comes the hardest part, and as for you, I just hope you don't give up," he said as a little anime-style droplet fell down the back of his neck. "Don't give up?" What could he have meant by that? Gaku thought to himself. "Don't worry about Whis. He'll eat later. Let's get started already," he shouted, raising his fist. As night fell, Gaku and Miu were coming out of the shower when they encountered Whis, who looked very serious. "What's wrong, Whis?" Miu asked curiously. Daishinkan called, immediately summoning the destroyer gods for a meeting. He replied to the goddess of destruction. Task, well, Gaku, you will meet several destroyer gods who are not doing their job, he said, placing his hand on the Sien's shoulder. Seriously? Does that mean I will meet everyone? Awesome! He exclaimed excitedly. No, that's not happening. Mr. Gaku won't be able to attend, said Whis, but in the end, Miu turned around. If my Gaku doesn't go, I won't go. If you're worried that those arrogant ones will try to hurt him, don't worry, I'll simply kill them, he replied with a kind smile. Oh, you don't change, Mrs. Miu. But that's alright, I'll allow it because you're pregnant. Just try not to get into trouble, Whis warned her. PFFF, as if I would get myself into trouble, replied Miu, making a pout. Haha Miu, let's do what Whis says or we will make him look bad too, right? Goku told her with a slight smile. Alright, fine, let's go already, exclaimed Miu, and the three of them headed towards Xeno-sama's palace.
Miu, Whis, and Goku were the last to arrive, and also the ones who captured everyone's attention due to the Saiyan's presence. What is a mortal doing in the territory of the gods? Explain yourself, Miu, demanded the god of destruction of Universe 11, Vermouth, while some gods began to whisper, and Champa just looked at his sister with anger. Miu gave him a murderous look. You raise my clown tone again, and I'll stick that toy nose where the light doesn't hit you, she said, annoyed. What did you say, damn it? Dare? He shouted as he walked towards her. Stop, said Daishenkin in an authoritative tone that made Vermouth return to her place. Whis, can you give me an explanation about the mortal who is here? He asked politely. Miu was about to respond, but Whis spoke first. Excuse our impertinence. The mortal Son Goku is my apprentice, so I brought him here to start learning about his possible role, said the angel, under the piercing gaze of his goddess of destruction. I see, then he can stay, the high priest finished, and then some doors opened and everyone knelt down, including Goku, thanks to Miu's reflexes. 2 guards entered the gate, and behind them was the king of all, Xeno-sama, who went straight to sit on his throne. Daishenkin, you can start, can you? The king of all said kindly. This will be brief, said the high priest, making appear a sort of notebook. The level of the universes is getting worse and worse, according to the data from the last 1,000 years. Only universes 1, 7, 5, 8, and 12 have maintained or increased the development of the universe. The others have worsened even more. If this does not improve in the coming years, Xeno-sama might take action, he said seriously, making the gods of destruction tremble. The great Xeno-sama? And what decisions would he make? Asked the goddess of Universe 2, Jerez. Could I change the gods of destruction, right? Or erase the universes that have no progress? Replied Xeno-sama in his innocent tone. What? Exclaimed several gods of destruction. How pathetic. Now they get scared when they should be doing their job as gods? If I were in Xeno-sama's place, I would replace the destructive gods who aren't making progress, said Miu seriously. Do you think you're superior to us? Exclaimed Vermouth with enormous anger. I should have killed you when I could. I got together with my father. Did you hear, sister? Champa exclaimed, full of anger. Miu heard her brother and approached him and punched him and sent him flying and crashing into one of the walls. I don't have a brother. Several gods launched themselves to attack the goddess of destruction of Universe 7, who began to dodge all the blows that were going towards her. What? Can't I pass? Goku's scream was heard as he was with the guards. The gods of destruction were frozen at what the Saiyan had done, but they were even more frightened when Xeno-sama stood up and approached the Saiyan. Nice to meet you. My name is Son Goku, sir. I would like to ask you why those gods hate Miu, the Saiyan said, while extending his arm to the king of all, who returned the greeting, and then Goku lifted him into the air while waving hello. What is that fool doing? Shouted Champa while moving his ears with his hands. Yes, how fun! Shouted Xeno-sama with enormous happiness. Son Goku, you are fun. Do you want to be my friend? Asked the king of everything to the Saiyan. Sure, but please don't be so formal. Just call me Goku, replied the Saiyan with his classic smile. Goku? Okay, then you also give me a nickname, okay? Said Xeno-sama happily. A nickname? I know. How about Zen-chan? Asked Goku to the king of everything. What, Teat? How dare you call Xeno-sama that? I will destroy you immediately, shouted the god of Universe 4, Quitella. Miyu quickly stood behind Goku and glared at all the gods of destruction with hatred. "If you touch my Goku, I will kill you," she exclaimed, filled with rage. Suddenly, the Saiyan was sent flying from a blow by Champa. "I see it is important to you. If I kill him, you will suffer," he said maliciously, before disappearing from Miyu's sight. The angels looked at Daishenkin and Zeno-sama, wondering why they were allowing all this. But the king of all didn't know what to do, since the grand priest always told him what to do. It had always been that way, even though no one knew it. "Die!" shouted Champa, appearing in front of Goku and extending his hand. But before he could perform his technique, Miyu appeared, full of rage, her veins even visible on her face. She grabbed her brother's arm, lifted it up, and with her other free hand, she extended it towards Champa and shouted, "Hakai!" obliterating him from existence. Vermouth couldn't take it anymore and lunged at Miyu, but she had already lost her calm and, just like she did with her brother, said, "Hakai!" The gods were astonished by what Miyu had done. They did not expect her to react that way. She might say some things, but they never thought she would follow through, since she was a very calm person and hard to anger. The angels Daishenkin and Zeno-sama were also amazed by the goddess of destruction of Universe 7. "EA, isn't she going to be punished for killing 2 destruction gods?" exclaimed the god of destruction of Universe 9, Sidra. Ignoring everyone, Miyu took Goku in her arms. "Are you all right, my love?" she asked him lovingly. Yes, that blow hurt me a lot, but luckily I transformed second before he hit me. If I didn't, I would be dead, hee. They both went down to the platform. Miyu lowered the Saiyan, and then she knelt in front of the king completely. "I apologize for what I did, but if you hurt my boyfriend, I will not forgive you," said the goddess without regretting what she did. Daishenkin cracked his fingers and revived the 2 eliminated gods, and then looked at Miyu. "This is solved only one way." "Zen-chan, don't allow it! Miyu is pregnant!" exclaimed Goku, surprising everyone. Pregnant?" whispered everyone at the scene. "It's a shame. You should have thought about it before," said Daishenkin, raising his arm towards Miyu, but a hand stopped him. "I guess you just wanted to scare her." The voice of a woman was heard. Everyone looked at who had stopped Daishenkin's hand, which suddenly appeared in front of them. Look at all these little explorers, playing at being destructive gods," she said, mocking them, then walked past Miyu, who felt someone caress her hair, and when she looked up, there she was, standing in front of Zeno-sama. "Mother," Miyu whispered, with a huge shine in her eyes, on the verge of tears from emotion. "Zeno, what do you think your sister would do if she found out about all this? I'm disappointed in you, little one," said the woman while shaking her head, then looked at the Saiyan and gave him a small friendly tap on the shoulder. "Son Goku, the only person worthy of my daughter," he said with a huge smile, and then gave the Saiyan a quick hug. "You know me? And she is Miyu's mother?" Goku asked, quite surprised. If I know you? Well, I just met you, but in another universe of space-time, you gave your life to finish off someone who threatened the universes of that reality," I comment, smiling. "Who are you?" asked timidly the god of destruction of Universe 5, Arak, as he emanated an aura and power that surpassed even that of the Great Priest. "Ah, right, I am Diana, Miyu's mother, and the rest is confidential," she said while extending her hand to her daughter to help her up. "You are my mother too?" exclaimed Champa. "You lost the right to call me mother when you tried to kill me along with your deceased father," she said with a bit of anger that made the whole room tremble. "Mother!" shouted Miyu, full of emotion, and then hugged her with all her strength, while tears of happiness fell down her cheeks. Mother and daughter pulled away from the hug. "So you're pregnant, my girl. I'm going to be a grandmother," she shouted, full of emotion. "You are interrupting an important meeting, Diana, and what are you doing here?" exclaimed Daishenkin seriously. "Ah, what meeting are you talking about? The one where you would kill my daughter out of resentment towards me? Remember that I didn't want this job. I just wanted to live a normal life with my daughter," she said seriously to the priest. "I think we are unnecessary here," said in a low voice Rumush, the god of destruction of 10. That's right, you may leave, and remember to improve the level of your universes, Diana told them, then turned to look at Daishenkin. No, you stay here. I am the one who gives the orders, Daishenkin said in an authoritative tone. Respect your position. Remember that around here I rule even above Zeno-sama. Do you forget that with so many gods they are in charge of a quarter of the multiverse? We are 5 and we are in charge of the rest, Diana said in a mocking tone. A quarter part? Exclaimed the destructive gods, surprising even Goku and Miu. Madam Diana, excuse Daishenkin's attitude. I will discipline you as necessary, if... Zeno-sama said to the leader of the royal guard. It will not be necessary. It is enough for him to know who is in charge. He always took advantage of his position to punish everyone, but now things are the other way, Diana replied, smiling at the king completely. I already got lost, so the meeting is over? Goku asked while scratching the back of his head. That's why. Tomorrow I have to get up early to train, and I don't have time for this stupid meeting where they only try to make me angry, he said to his mother. With all due respect, Miu, don't put us all in the same bag. I respect you as you respect me, said the god of destruction of the Universe 1, Iwen. Arak, Laqueer, Gin, gods of Universes 5, 8, and 12, reproached Miu for the same. I know, guys, but it's the others. Whenever I come, the same and the same. It all...
I'm tired of it, he said with a tone of annoyance. Goku approached her and hugged her from behind. He knew how she felt since she told him everything. Zeno-sama, Diana called, gaining everyone's attention. One more incident between any of the destroyer gods and they will be dismantled along with Daishinkin that apparently has changed because of the hatred he feels for me. That is my verdict, and I will notify Mirai-sama, Diana said seriously. Okay, if. I will also intervene more often if, he replied to the leader of the royal guard. Well, destroyer gods can withdraw. It's an order, Diana said in an authoritative tone while looking at Miu and Goku, to whom she nodded as a sign that they would see each other again. Then all the gods and angels went back to her universe. Which is what you really want, Diana? Explain yourself, exclaimed the high priest furiously. What I want is for you to be fair. You take advantage of Zeno-sama because he is still a child. But what will you do when he grows up? Or better yet, what will you do if I notify everything that happens here? What do you think Mirai-sama will do? I asked him seriously. Tsk, he's not ready yet. He's just a child that you and Mirai-sama found. Think about it, Daishinkin. I'll forgive you this time, but if something happens to Miu, my grandchildren, or son Goku, you will meet me angry, and believe me, you will not like it, she said with an emotionless face before turning around. Tsk, good, but I don't know what to tell Mirai-sama, please, he shouted to Diana, who had gone to say goodbye to Zeno-sama. You don't need to tell me. I keep my words. By the way, why don't they organize a martial arts tournament for the future? They might see something interesting, Fufu, he said before leaving. A martial arts tournament? Zeno-sama and Daishinkin said to each other. Yadrat, Universe 7. The three of them arrived at Pirala's house, and immediately Whis went to Miu's planet. Your mother is amazing, Goku told her as he sat on the bed and took off his boots. Oh, really? I hope you haven't fallen for her, eh? He said with a hint of jealousy in his tone. I was just saying that she radiated a power that made me tremble with fear, the Saiyan said as he laid down. Well, it happened to me too, darling. Forgive me for everything that happened back there, Miu said as she took off her dress and lay down, resting her head on the Saiyan's chest. Don't apologize, Miu. Even so, you defended me. Someday I'll do the same, you know, he replied with a slight smile. I'm sure you do, she said before giving him a quick kiss. Do you want a nighttime training session? She asked the Saiyan as a blush spread across her cheeks. Yes, I do. I want to train a lot, the Saiyan replied excitedly, beginning to kiss her passionately. 1 year later, somewhere in the solar system, on a ship. Which planet did you say was a child? Someone had asked. Planet Earth. And hurry up, I can't wait to start my revenge, ha ha ha. Everyone gathered at Bulma's house to celebrate the holidays. Bulma,
Hey, why don't we do a question challenge? What do you think? Vegeta, that sounds like something stupid, woman. Only a fool would be willing to do something like that. Goku, well, I would do it. Vegeta, I knew it. After all, you are an idiot. Miu, show some respect or you won't like it if my hand slips, understood? Loud and clear, Mrs. Miu. Piccolo, this is pure gold, whispering while recording everything with a camera. Krillin, so guys, we'll all participate, right? Yamcha, of course. Suddenly, a light appears, alarming everyone, and 3 people come out of it. Miu, where were you, Whis? Then she saw the other 2 people. Vados? Madre! Diana, we brought pizza. 10, but we didn't order pizza. Perfect, there was no pizza. Miu, Vados, Mother, what are you doing here? You must have a lot of work. Well, actually not. Mr. Champa was punished and is now sleeping for at least 4 years. Diana, also, we came to see how your pregnancy is going. Also, Whis invited us to play a question challenge. Miu, Whis, is that true? Ho ho ho, that's right, Mrs. Miu. Shall we start now? Everyone, yes, we're waiting for your questions. Vegeta, not me. Miu, oh yes, especially you, she said with a mischievous look. 3 months earlier, Goku and Miu were having lunch while watching the God Pad until some notifications appeared, interrupting the video they were watching. Miu, and now what? She said, a bit annoyed while tapping on the notification. Goku, and your glasses? Here they are, she said while putting them on. Let's see what it says. Ah, it's some questions for us, darling. Ah, really? And what are they saying? He said before starting to eat the stew made by the goddess of destruction. Ernesto Aldair asks, do they think their daughter or son could ever rival their grandmother, and what would their name be? And he also sends regards to Zenosama and the others. Goku, your greetings will be given as soon as we arrive on Earth, and to Zenchan when he visits us again. Miu, well, since Goku didn't answer you, I'll do it. I'll start with the names. The boy will be called Gohan, and for the girl, we are deciding between Saori or Mio, right, dear?
That's right. I chose Gohan for my grandfather, but for our little girl, we haven't decided yet. And regarding the other question, I would like to answer you, but since I can't feel the ki of Miu or Mrs. Diana, I wouldn't be able to tell you, so I'll leave that to Miu. Soon you'll be able to perceive the divine ki. According to Whis, you're on a very good path, even though you're doing double training. Well, Ernesto, get ready because I'm going to tell you confidential information. Wow, now I'm very curious. Honestly, it will be very difficult to match my mother, but not impossible. She worked very hard and continues to do so to become more powerful. But even I want to match her one day, so I think that yes, someday we will match my mother. But first, we have to take a huge step like she did, and that is master Ultra Instinct and surpass Whis. And I won't stay behind either, he said with great excitement and determination. That's it. Come on, dear. Well, Ernesto, I hope that answered your question. Now, the next question is for you, darling. For me? And what does it say? Kurokami asks, why don't you ask Whis to give you back the monkey tail? You might get a big surprise at some point. Excellent question, Kurokami. Give me back my glasses, she said, taking them back since the Saiyan had taken them during a careless moment. Well, I also wanted to look cool. As for the question, Whis offered to restore my tail to further increase my potential, but I would do it after completing the spirit control training, because that way I could master the transformation and not turn into an Ozaru upon seeing the full moon. Yes, it's true, and I hope Whis is right, or both of you will see what's good, she said while standing up, and a huge bulge appeared in the abdominal area. Yes, but if you do that, you won't have the chocolate ice cream that Whis brings from Earth and pays with the credit card Bulma gave me. Yum, she said before crossing her arms and sitting down. Is there another question? Yes, it's the last one. David asks us, what will their children's names be? And do you plan to have more?
After finishing reading the question, a blush spread across the cheeks of the goddess of destruction while the Saiyan smiled at her. Well, as for our children's names, we've already answered that, but we'll do it again. The boy will be Gohan, and the girl will be Saori or Mio. And as for if we'll have more, I think so. What do you think, Mew? The goddess sighed to regain her calm, and little by little, the blush began to fade. Then she looked at Goku and said, "My love, we can have as many children as you want," she finished, smiling affectionately. Goku, "Great! There you go, David. I hope we've answered your questions correctly, guys. Well, I'm going to train now. See you later, darling," he said before giving her a quick kiss on the lips and then went outside, where Pyrella and Whis were waiting, playing cosmic chess to pass the time. Well, that would be all for now. If you have more questions, just ask them, and we will answer them, he said as he started fiddling with the God Pad. 5 new messages from Vermouth and Champa. "I hate you. I will kill you. We will go and kill you. We will destroy the earth and your loved ones. We will murder your children." I'm not surprised by these 2 idiots. Just come. Now that I complete the training, I have to test my skills, he said with a malicious smile before turning off the God Pad. Present. A huge ship had landed in a mountainous area, and dozens of soldiers came out of it. After them, 2 individuals emerged. One of them was none other than Frieza, who had robotic parts, and beside him was his father, Cold. At a considerable distance, the Z-Warriors were observing and analyzing the situation. Even Bulma was with them. "What is that scum doing here?" said Piccolo angrily. "Shut up and hide your ki. They can detect us with their trackers if we don't," Vegeta told him without looking, as he was focused on the 2 villains. "Surely that Freezer is a weakling. With what we've trained, we should be able to defeat him without difficulty, right guys?" said Yamcha while throwing some punches into the air. Suddenly, a lightning bolt destroys a small mountain that was beneath where they were, and out of nowhere, Frieza appears in front of them. "Ho ho ho! What do we have here? None other than some insects," he said mockingly, with one hand covering his mouth. The warriors became alarmed and took fighting stances, while Bulma hid behind the ship she had come in. "What the hell are you doing on Earth, Freezer?" exclaimed Vegeta, raising his fist. "And what do you think I'm doing here? I came in search of my revenge," he said, appearing in front of the Saiyan and delivering a strong kick, sending him crashing into a mountain. "Vegeta!" the other warriors exclaimed. "Oh, don't worry, there's enough for everyone," he said maliciously, and with incredible speed took all of them out of combat, then looked at Bulma. "Where is that annoying Goku?" he shouted at her angrily. "Goku hasn't arrived. He's on another planet training with Mrs. Mew." "What? That scoundrel is with the goddess of destruction? So what I saw on Namek wasn't a vision. It was her herself. Damn it!" he yelled in anger. "What's happening, son?" his father asked, approaching slowly since his son could handle the situation. The Emperor turned around to look at his father. "The Saiyan is not here. He is with the goddess of destruction." "What?" he exclaimed in surprise. "Tuck, I suppose I will destroy the Earth so I don't leave empty-handed, and I will take revenge another time," said Frieza after sighing. Then he raised his hand and aimed at the Z-Fighters. "First, I will have fun with you," he said maliciously, and shot a beam at Yamcha's leg, causing him immense pain. Ah, he screamed in extreme pain. "Insect, I'm Vegeta. You said that Frieza is a weakling, so take him out then," Vegeta said as he approached holding a shoulder. "That, my son, is a weakling? Who said that, Prince Vegeta?" Cold asked with a smile on his face. "What does it matter right now? I have to defeat them here and now," the Saiyan shouted, increasing his power and launching himself to attack Frieza, but he grabbed him by the neck with his tail. Vegeta, don't you still understand that you're nothing but a weakling?" he said provocatively, then threw him and finally hit him with a lightning strike in the arms and abdomen. "Ah, damn it!" screamed the prince in pain as he started coughing up blood. "Freezer, finish them once and for all, and then destroy the Earth," Cold told his son seriously. "Don't do it, Freezer!" screamed Krillin as he tried to get up.
You're right. These insects aren't even good for playing, he said while creating a massive energy ball. Die! He shouted before launching the attack at the Z-Warriors, but a white light fell from the sky, and then Freezer's attack vanished. You'll pay for this, Freezer, said Goku, emerging from the light, alongside Whis and Miyu, who now had short hair down to shoulder length and was carrying 2 babies of nearly 3 months in her arms, a boy with black hair and black eyes who also had a monkey tail, and the other was a girl with white hair, blue eyes, and a silver-colored monkey feature. Goku! Shouted his friends joyfully, while Vegeta, although it pained him to admit it, was relieved that the Saiyan had arrived. Miyu! Shouted Cold and Freezer upon seeing the goddess of destruction. The goddess felt a twitch in her eye appearing, and with a vein on her forehead she shouted, For you, I am still Lady Mew! Are those his children? Asked Cold upon seeing the infants. That's right, and if you make them cry, there will be no trace of you, understood? He shouted, causing immense fear in the villains. But Goku started to walk and stood in front of Freezer. I won't try to convince you anymore, so get ready, he said as he placed 2 fingers on the villain's chest and then delivered a powerful punch that would knock the Emperor to the ground, unconscious. Whis shook his head while Mew laughed silently, knowing that the Saiyan still wasn't used to his new power and, well, had ended Freezer without realizing it. Freezer! Damn it! I'll kill you! He shouted, starting to throw rapid punches, but Goku easily dodged them. I think I overdid it. I'm still not used to my new strength, he said, closing and opening his fists while dodging Cold's blows. His friends watched in astonishment as the villain couldn't land a single hit on the Saiyan, and to think they had no chance against them. Cold stepped back and, enraged, shouted, I will kill you with my final form! As he started to increase his ki immensely, causing rocks to rise and making the area tremble. Mwah! The cries of the children Mew was holding could be heard. Everyone looked at the goddess of destruction while Cold finished transforming. Whis, please hold my babies, she said with a kind smile. The angel nodded and carried the infants, while Mew began walking slowly toward where Goku and Cold were. I warned you. I was generous by not killing them from the start, but even so, you made my babies cry, and I won't forgive you, Mew said as she opened her eyes, revealing that intense red color that shone with every step she took. Damn it! Cold shouted as he began to fly at high speed toward his ship, but suddenly he fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. Mew lowered her hand as a malicious smile formed on her face. Meanwhile, Cold got up with some difficulty, feeling as if gravity had suddenly increased, and he fell with great force. Don't try to escape. You won't make it. Accept your destiny, Mew said as she stood before Cold. Tuck, you bitch, the villain shouted, throwing a punch that never landed, but his arm appeared in the hand of the goddess of destruction. It was so fast that the pain hadn't arrived yet, but the blood started pouring out in streams. Foo, goodbye, Hawkeye, shouted with a smile on his face as Cold disappeared before his eyes until there was no trace left. Even the blood in the arm disappeared. Then, from 1 second to the next, he appeared behind Goku, who sighed. Honey, don't hesitate to kill this kind of people. Well, although you handled Freezer well, ha ha ha. He mocked him, and then went again to Whis to take their children in his arms. Can you heal them, please? He asked politely, referring to the Z-Warriors. As you wish, Lady Mew, the angel replied with a satisfied smile, since before the goddess only gave orders, and now she asked politely and even inquired if he could do things, one could say she had become kinder. Whis healed the others while Goku and Mew approached them. We arrived just in time, said the goddess with a small smile. Mew, I thought we were going to die, said Bulma as she ran toward her, crying in anime style. How is everyone? Asked the Saiyan with a smile, while Mew handed one of her babies to Bulma, who had asked if she could hold one. You took too long, Kakarot, exclaimed Vegeta with slight annoyance. At least you made it, otherwise Frieza would have killed us all, Ten told him, making the prince mutter under his breath. Well, it's all over now. By the way, since we're all gathered, I have some bad news to give you, said Miyu, suddenly getting serious. Bad news? Asked Krillin, fear in his voice. That's right, guys. It's something that's coming, and it's in your hands, said Goku, also serious. Tsk, just tell us what's happening already, said Vegeta, arms crossed. As disrespectful as always, one day I'm going to get fed up and give him a kick in the butt that will send him to Universe 11 and he will never sit down again. Anyway, in 3 years and 7 months, powerful androids will appear and start destroying everything, said Miyu, glancing at Vegeta, trying not to do what she had said. Androids? Exclaimed Bulma. From your tone, I deduce that they will be powerful, but how do you know that? Ten asked, analyzing what had been said. I sighed and walked towards them. My mother told me a few months ago because a friend who keeps an eye on the timing told her, and since we supposedly won't be there at that moment, she decided to tell me so I could change things and ensure the survival of humanity, she concluded, glancing sideways at all the Z-Warriors. I understand. They will surely take advantage of the time when you are not there, but how will we solve that? Will we be able to win? Asked Piccolo, who had been quietly listening for a while. That's right, exclaimed Goku, smiling confidently and looking at his partner with a knowing glance.
The four of us talked about this and came to a conclusion that will benefit us all, and that is that all of you for 3 years will be trained by Whis. He ended, looking at the angel while the others were surprised, since months ago on his visit they found out that he was the teacher of Mio and Goku. In these 3 years I will make them improve incredibly so that they can protect the planet against any threat, said the angel with a smile. Perfect, this way I can surpass Kakarot and prove that I am the #1 Saiyan. Thought Vegeta with a huge smile on his face, and he wasn't the only one feeling that way. The others were also very happy to be trained by the teacher of the goddess of destruction. Let's continue at my house, guys. I prepared a room for the kids so we can talk in more detail, said Bulma while walking toward the ship. You're right, I was lucky to get them to sleep before coming so that bastard cold wouldn't wake them up, said Mio with a bit of annoyance while following Bulma. And slowly everyone got on the ship to go to Bulma's house. 2 days later, the goddess of destruction, Mio, was in the dining room having coffee with milk, something she had tried the day before at Bulma's house and liked. A few minutes later, the sound of the door was heard. Could it be Whis? Wondered the young goddess as she put the god pad on the table and went to answer. And when she opened the door, Mother, she exclaimed in surprise, Miu. Diana also exclaimed upon seeing her daughter, who looked quite different from the last time. With a huge smile, she gave her daughter a big hug. That looks good on you, daughter, her mother told her with a smile before kissing her forehead and then moving on to the house. Mio smiled softly at her mother's compliment as she closed the door and went to attend to her mother. Do you want something to drink? I asked him while looking at him. Well, yes, something cold please, replied the leader of Mirai's royal guard. Seeing her daughter go to the kitchen she looked everywhere. And Goku? And babies? He asked curiously. Mio came back with a soft drink and gave it to her mother. Goku went to buy some things I ordered and the babies are sleeping, she replied to her mother as she sat next to her. Diana left the can of soda on the table and then looked at her daughter. He. A small laugh came out unintentionally. Why are you laughing? Mio asked her, raising an eyebrow. You already look like a dear wife. You are missing the housewife's apron. Short hair and change of look, even, she was saying as she began to touch Mio's breasts. And mother. What are you doing? He said with a blush. They have grown you a lot. I thought you would not go beyond the B cup, but I was wrong. They have grown you up to the C cup. Congratulations, daughter. Diana congratulated her daughter with a slight smile as she stopped touching her daughter's breasts. Well, was it to be expected that they would grow or not? You are cup D and I also did this. Look to me to reach this stage of my life, Mio replied before lying on her mother's lap. Diana smiled at her daughter's action and instantly began to stroke her hair, making Mio start to close her eyes. I am very proud of you, my little one. My only regret was not being with you all this time, she said in a low voice with a nostalgic look. Mother, whispered Mio, who had fallen asleep with a slight smile. Diana continued stroking her daughter's hair for several minutes, during which her eyes had changed to a completely violet color with white stars, looking like outer space. Apparently being apart for this time was the best option, she whispered as a tear rolled down her cheek and her eyes returned to normal, then she closed them and fell asleep. 20 minutes later the baby's crying woke both women. Mio quickly went to fetch her children and brought them to the dining room where they immediately stopped crying. "How strange," said Mio, seeing that her children stopped crying from one second to the next. "While my grandchildren. Let me hold them, daughter," cried Diana with hearts in her eyes and a huge smile. Mio approached her mother and carefully handed her her children, with whom Diana began to play. "Why is my Goku taking so long?" asked Mio with curiosity and also anxiety, so she went to the table and took the God pad to make a video call. "Hi darling," Goku greeted when he answered. "My love, why are you taking so long?" Mio asked, pouting. "I'm sorry, there were a lot of people, but they already helped me, and the pizzas will be ready in 10 minutes. "Don't worry, I'll come with teleportation," he replied, giving her a thumbs up. Well then I'll keep waiting for you, and by the way my mother came," Mio told her before turning the God pad and showing Diana playing with her children. "Mrs. Diana is at home," exclaimed the scion in surprise when he saw the goddess. The named looked at the God pad. "Goku, I told you to call me Diana or mother-in-law, we are family, you don't have to be formal," she said with a smile and then continue playing with her grandchildren. I'm sorry," the scion on the other side of the screen apologized. "Well my love, I'll see you in a few minutes, I love you," Mio said, blowing him a kiss. "And I to you darling," Goku came to say before the video call was cut off. "Daughter, what name did you finally decide on?" Diana asked, referring to the babies. Mio sat next to them. "Oh right, I'm sorry, mother, well we decided on Gohan and Mio," the goddess of destruction replied. What a coincidence, you know, before you were born I couldn't decide on your name and was choosing between Mio and Mio, she said to her daughter while laughing at the coincidence. Suddenly the babies started crying. "They're hungry," Diana commented, looking at her daughter. Mio sighed and began to unbutton her shirt to then take off her bra and look at her mother. "Pass them to me," she asked kindly. The sky blue-eyed woman handed her grandchildren to their mother, who began to breastfeed from Mio as if there were no tomorrow. "Why is Mio's tail a planned color and Gohan's brown?" Diana asked curiously. Mio looked at her children's scion tails and then turned her gaze to her mother. "I don't know, I supposed it was because Mio took after me, just as I took after you, and since we have hair that is between white and silver, her tail came out the same color," the goddess of destruction replied, without giving it too much importance. Diana nodded with a hand on her chin as if what her daughter said made sense. "I see, maybe that's it, I mean, daughters of goddesses look identical to their mother and sons to their father," she commented. "Wait. Is there another goddess who had children?" "I thought we were the only ones," Mio said with surprise. "Yes, there's one more who, like you, fell in love with a mortal and they had a daughter. I think she must be 1,000,000 years younger than you," she replied to her daughter. You make it sound like that's not many years," Mio said, laughing. "And Whis?" Diana asked with curiosity. Mio rolled her eyes. "He's training the warriors of this planet because of the news you gave us," she replied, not caring too much about the topic. I didn't think they would take that solution, although it's the best option, so they won't depend on the two of you," Diana replied with a mischievous smile. "Mom, what are you up to?" Mio asked curiously. I will be direct. I want to organize a meeting of destructive gods, angels and Kaioshin to introduce you to my grandchildren. After all that I want you to come to my universe for a while," Diana said with a slight smile. Suddenly Goku arrived, appearing with his fingers on his forehead. "You arrived just in time Goku," Diana commented. The scion raised an eyebrow with a bit of confusion. "Did I miss something?" Mio looked at her partner. "Mom wants to introduce our children to the other universes, and then she wants us to spend some time in her universe," she said to the scion before laying their children on the sofa and buttoning her shirt. The three of them sat at the table. Goku took out a device that Diana had given him months ago, and about 20 pizzas came out of it. "Well?" Diana asked before taking a slice. Mio looked at Goku, indicating that she wanted to know his opinion. "With all due respect, why would we introduce our children to the other universes? And by the way, how do you even have a universe?" asked the scion seriously. Mio opened her eyes. She had overlooked this last part. As far as she knew, her mother, along with the royal guard, lived in the Mirai Palace. Didn't I tell you?" I myself created a universe for me and others for the other members of the guard, and from there we watch everything in the multiverse and the timelines. Diana replied with a small mischievous smile, "Wait, exclaimed Mio and Goku, their jaws dropping to the floor. "What are you?" Goku exclaimed in surprise when he heard his mother-in-law. "Ho ho, I'm a life form called Diana," he replied with a smile. "Haha, how funny," shouted Mio while crossing her arms. "Fu, I also formed a team of 5 girls to keep my universe in order and to help me with other things as well. I called them the Universal Guardians," she commented before taking another piece. "Mom, but how?" asked Mio, not understanding how she could accomplish those things, while Goku took the opportunity to eat since he noticed that his mother-in-law had already finished 3 pizzas in just a few minutes. Daughter, it's a long story, but to sum it up, I would say that now I am like, the most powerful being that exists. And I can do anything you can imagine. Well, something like that, since I am only below Mirai-sama, who is an entity, she replied to her daughter. And now how am I supposed to surpass her? Mio thought with a bit of annoyance. Wow, you must have gone through some fatal training, right? Asked Goku, coming back from the kitchen with 3 sodas. Diana took one and began drinking it. You can't even imagine, I was the only one who completed it. None of the other guards could finish it, she said after finishing her drink. Then I accept your proposal, mother. I don't like the idea of the other destructive gods knowing our children, but I'm curious about your universe, Mio said with a small smile. Goku stood up. I can't wait to meet your Diana universe too. We could also continue our training there, he said the latter to Mio. Fu, yes, they can train and even in better conditions, plus I will take care of my grandchildren in the meantime, Diana told them while a smile formed on their faces. Well, in that case we should prepare the things we are going to take, Mio commented with a hand on her chin. Wait, said Diana as she stood up. Daughter, stand up too, she said to Mio since Goku was already standing. The goddess of destruction did as her mother asked. Before I forget, I will unlock your hidden potential so that when you train, you can make the most of your abilities, said Diana. Then she placed a hand on each of their chests. A few seconds later, it glowed for a moment. For a few seconds, Mio's eyes changed to a silver color and then returned to their natural red, while Goku's Saiyan tail reappeared. Done! Exclaimed Diana with a small smile. Even now you've become a little stronger, she whispered softly. Goku and Mio felt different. They both looked at their hands, opening and closing their fists. My tail! I have my tail! Shouted Goku, filled with happiness and excitement as if he were a child. Darling, let's get our things ready, said Mio, taking Goku by the hand and heading to the room. Diana smiled as she watched them go. Goku, your power has increased 4 times, you are incredible. Mio, yours has increased 5 times, she whispered with a smile. Even in my time as a destroyer goddess, when Whis unlocked my hidden potential, my power only increased twice. Mio, will you ever surpass me someday? Ha! But what am I saying, she probably will, thought Diana with a slight smile. 20 minutes later, Goku and Mio left the room. And their things? Asked Diana, raising an eyebrow. I stored them in the device you gave me, Goku replied, smiling. Mio went to pick up her babies and then approached her mother. Will we take long? She asked curiously. It depends on how long the other gods take, Diana answered, scratching the back of her neck. Damn, exclaimed Mio. All set. I sent a message to Bulma letting her know we'll be gone for a while, said Goku, putting away his cell phone. Well done Goku, that news will stimulate others more to become stronger. Well, let's go to Zeno-sama's palace and then to my universe, Diana said while snapping her fingers and a portal appeared in front of them. Incredible! Goku exclaimed when he saw the portal. Shall we go? Diana asked as she set foot in the doorway. TSK, will they be fine without us? What if another villain appears? Mio wondered with a little doubt about the trip. Not bad. Come on. I'm sure that when we come back the others will have become very strong. Isn't that Mio? He said to the destructive goddess looking into her eyes. What am I worrying about? They are with Whis so their evolution will be very fast and they will be able to defeat anyone, she thought. Yes honey. They will surely be very strong. he told her with a smile while taking the Scion's hand and entering through the portal under the gaze of the leader of the royal guard. Fufufu, the plan to finish off the demon god is underway, whispered Diana, fully entering the portal.